Out of the gates and ready to go. OutKick 360 is back. Wednesday edition is here. 6th and Peabody, our location with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Plenty of topics to get to today. College football heavy. NFL heavy. Primary complaint coming up in 45 minutes and much more. Gentlemen, good afternoon.
Boys, I am pissed off for greatness today. I am fired up. I am ready to go. I have stoked the fires of the college baseball Illuminati, who they have got their pitchforks out.
Once again.
They are on their way after me. They're coming to get me. All the college baseball people out there that just hate me now, I love it. I want all of them to know that you fuel me to a just outstanding, stellar performance on today's show. I am fired up and ready for this show. I'm ready to talk some college football. I'm ready to talk whatever the hell we want to talk about today. How about that?
And I've pissed off every Nashville Predators reporter in town.
Oh, yes.
So,
yes.
Once again.
Predator Illuminati.
So the two of us have done good work. I had a meeting this morning at Iron Tribe, and I'm considering joining Iron Tribe. My friend David has had great success there. It's been too long since I've had a workout shaped by somebody else. It's close to home. Knockout 45-minute workout, I can do it in an hour and 10 minutes probably, door to door, and I'm overdue for it. I'm going to go do a trial one tomorrow, so you guys will see me as a physical wreck after doing something formal for the first time, and I will make a judgment after that.
We will wheel Paul to the broadcast area. Here
Come
at
in here
6th
like
and Peabody.
Sweet Chuck.
We're gonna carry you the entire show. I mean, it's like limping to the finish line.
We send Jacob and Corey out to carry you in.
It'll be fun content.
We can make this happen. This is not my primary complaint, but just
You'd never burn it.
people
now.
fired up at
it
me.
can't be
makes
your
you think about
primary
this.
complaint.
No, it's not. It's not. Don't worry. But the people who just like to insult you, like there's so many things you could insult me about, right? Like people sometimes pick my looks or something I've worn or who I work for or whatever. But when you just completely fabricate something about this show or my career, I can't stand it. Like I have to stop, but I feel the urge to set the record straight when someone says that. Like I see the numbers. Like, I know what audience is. I know if we've gone up or down. So if you say something that's factually incorrect, I'm going to check you on it. Anyways,
I had a good
really
insult contest with a couple high school girls the other day.
Really?
I was driving on the front row.
Wow.
Hutton's, can't believe I haven't brought it up. I was driving in front of the Publix.
Is this over the kissing booth? Or
No. I was going to buy the final supplies for our year-end party for our baseball team that we hosted. So some final beer and ice and the like.
For your youth baseball?
Yes, for Simon's team.
The beer for the youth baseball.
Well,
It's just a nice progression.
The
Party
youth
of the
have
year.
parents.
Well,
The
you
youth
said
have
I had to
parents.
get the
Jack.
supplies
that's
for
how
the
you
youth
get rid of
baseball.
the,
So you know the beer,
emotions
the
of
ice.
losing.
Who knew Paul was Walter Matthau in Bad News Bears?
These kids have parents, Chad. So I turned, on the main wide road in front of the Publix, and lo and behold, two young high school girls are choosing to walk relatively in the middle of that road. Were they in the exact middle? No. Were they closer to the middle than the side? No. Was I in a mood? Yes. I rolled out the window.
You got
and
Jacob rolling in there today. Jacob Swanson's loving it.
I love it, Jacob. A little louder, Jacob.
I love it. No, it's great.
I roll down the
Great
window
background
and I
noise.
say, "Get the bleep out of the middle of the road." And the one girl, the talker of the two, says,
She was the alpha
"Yeah,
of the two, you're
yeah."
saying.
She says, "Does this look like the middle of the road?" And I said,
I like that comeback.
It looks more like the middle than the side where you should be." And she said, "You look ugly."
She won that.
Yeah. And so then
Paul's like, so I rolled my window.
What do you respond
Well,
with?
then
that?
I go
I rolled
through-
my window up and cried.
Then I go through a Costanza-like replay where I wasn't as sharp as I should have been. I went and parked the car. I thought of it in time, but they were gone. It was like the jerk store, the shrimp,
Yes.
Yeah.
the shrimp thing, like the jerk store. And I wanted to say, I should have said, it's more important to be smart than beautiful.
Well,
That would have really hurt them.
You're also. What if her response was, "Are you calling a 16-year-old girl beautiful?"
And she wasn't that.
Hold on,
She
let me
wasn't
call
that
my- let
good
me call
looking,
my
by the
dad.
way, either.
Are
Yeah,
you hitting
well-
on me, sir?
A, she wasn't that.
It's the
pretty.
confidence that counts.
And B, while I'm not the most attractive man in the world, we've had this conversation before. There is a segment of the female population that finds my type very pleasing. 11 to 15%, I say, of women.
It's a passionately
think I
devoted
have-
small
yes.
segment of women.
Yes. And I'm satisfied with that grouping because those people really dig my game. And I married one of them.
These didn't.
No,
Clearly.
these didn't. But did they miss the traffic school day in 5th grade where you don't walk in the middle of the road?
Again, I'll argue. We've been on Super Bowl Radio Row for teens of years now doing the show. This collective is
Longer than these girls have been alive.
correct. Yes, I started when you were born, honey, going to the Super Bowl. This collective here is top 5% of all sports talk radio hosts in America. From a look standpoint, and a dress standpoint.
We also put on shirts with collars.
Well, I'm telling
to
you,
no
like,
sweatpant rule.
you go
It's
to
no
that
full
event.
effect.
I don't own sweatpants.
I mean, you would think that this is Bradley Cooper, Brad Pitt, and Leo when you go on
George.
Radio Row. Like, who are these guys? I mean, we are the talk of Radio Row. We are so much better looking than most
Sports talk
radio
radio
hosts
is
out
an
there.
ugly, ugly business.
It is a very, very ugly
And when we
business.
say ugly
Yeah.
business, we're not talking about the business. We're talking about the people.
We're talking about
Exactly.
The looks of the people.
Yeah, some dude with a salami stuck to his cheek when he walks to his midday show.
I'm thinking of one guy in
Conducting
particular.
an interview with Travis Kelce.
Yeah.
The sweatpants.
Just,
And we're on deck.
Yeah, some dude just slobbering over Annie Agar on Radio Row. That's got a mustard stain on his navel.
The sweatpants comment really got me thinking about one guy in particular, just ambling around.
Man.
I think he
Plenty
didn't.
of
He
those
didn't
guys.
pack a suitcase because he didn't need because he knew he was going to wear those sweatpants all week.
Paul, I thought about you last night in the movie theater because your aversion to going to the movies because of people.
Yeah, I just hate the people.
Tuesday night, I'm thinking it's going to be a slow night for the movies, right?
No
Get
such
up to
luck.
that
I
little
would think that.
kiosk. You don't even go to the actual person anymore. They don't have anyone there. You go work the kiosk. You pick your seats out. I look up and I said, we got a problem. There are a lot
Too
of
many
tickets
people.
already purchased, and there's not many open. I'm thinking we're going to have a well-trafficked, 6:45 showing of Elvis.
Is this the $5
on
movie
a
night or
Tuesday
whatever,
night in Mount Juliet?
whatever it is?
No, well, it's half off, I think, for Regal Crown members, maybe. But I think it's just popcorn's half
Are you a
off.
member?
Anyway, I am. So we get
Dennis
our
Leary would
seats,
be
and we're
proud.
sort of up close. But the whole section behind us is booked. Okay, whatever. It's probably an older crowd going to see Elvis. There was an oxygen tank in front of us. I mean, a literal guy with an oxygen tank and his wife in
So
front of
you're
us.
sitting behind Darth Vader.
There was a very old couple to our left, and Paul behind us were 9 high school girls.
I'm out. I'm out of the contest.
And the entire run of the trailers, they were so loud,
Pure
making
hell.
little inside
It's
jokes,
just trailers.
laughing, talking it up. They're like the one guy that's with them is like joking with the old couple next to him, introducing himself, and like, "Oh, Dylan, you're so funny. Oh, it's just so great. No one wants to sit on the end. Who's going to sit on the end?" They were arguing over who's going to sit on the end because they all wanted to sit together the whole time.
Did you turn and glare at all?
And I turned to Angie and I said, and I was thinking about you. I was like, this is the first time in a while, and I don't go to nearly as many movies where I'm thinking we've made a big mistake.
Massive mistake.
Like we're going to be the ones that I'm going to turn around like I did one time when I almost got in a fight watching Creed 2 with the guy who was like making weird noises the whole movie. I'm going to turn around and yell at these kids to shut up early in the movie, or we're going to have to stand up and go find empty seats as the movie's going to get away from them.
Any babies?
No babies. Not like
a
your
lot of cell
experience
phone
on-
conversations in the middle of film.
No, but to their credit, and I was shocked, they shut up the moment the lights dimmed and the movie came on. Didn't hear from them again. So
It's a shock.
I don't know what the lesson is here,
I mean, that's a major upset.
but my expectations were this is going to be an awful
That's
experience.
UMBC beating Virginia.
And it was great. And by the way, Elvis, powerful.
Then to tie in this this whole conversation, the 2 girls that Paul was referencing were also sitting behind Chad last night. at the
they
movie
did
theater.
not find him
I
attractive.
thought
either.
it was weird. They called me ugly. When I turned around and said
that's,
something like,
that's just a go-to line. They go
they're like,
around.
"Ma'am, why are you with this ugly man?"
They call. Yeah, they said to Angie, "You could have done
I do,
so
though,
much better."
like you did with the 2 high school girls, Paul. I'm really looking for the opportunity to just see how old man I am when I snap at a group of teenagers and to see their response. Like, is the response going to be "you're ugly, sit down," or just complete silence?
I think
like,
you
this
look
guy might
ugly.
be unhinged, and we need to shut up and obey his authority. I'm looking for if they would have talked 5 minutes into the movie, they may have tested that. Where I stood up, I was one of those moments where I stand up for the theater and yell at all of them, and then
Bible
they shut
class.
up and everybody applaud. 5 minutes into Elvis, the theater's
Would have
applauding.
been like your leadership in that Bible school.
That's what
class.
happened when I yelled at the guy at Creed too. Everybody behind him started applauding me, and the guys, of course, threatening me and yelling at me the whole walk out of the theater.
Didn't stop the beating you took, but you got a
No.
good
I'm gonna
round
treat
of
you like
applause.
Apollo.
Yeah, I was Ivan Drago's son in this scenario, and he was Adonis Creed.
Hit us up on Twitter at OutKick360. Coming up, we will get into the new ACC schedule format. But beyond that, Freddie Freeman fires his agency. A headline from yesterday that we didn't get to, we'll carry over to today. One thing that leads the headlines today, guys, and this is the mind-numbing news cycle of what is the NFL. So how many weeks now have we gone on with these reports that the NFL wants and is going to lobby for Deshaun Watson to be suspended for at least a full season?
It started this weekend.
So it was before
started
that.
before that.
It was before
And
that.
now
It
they've
was
the
changed
Friday-
team
first-
entirely.
It was the Friday that you and I were doing the show together.
So, hold on. Are you asking NFL media or reports that the NFL was going to push for it? NFL media has been pushing for at least a year
that
for
the
a while.
NFL was going to push for the full
The
season.
first
when you were
report
in
I saw-
Dollywood.
I feel like the first report I saw was Saturday when I was in Dollywood.
So
Yeah.
go
Friday.
ahead and make it official right now.
Now they're
Now
splitting.
Now it goes back to the agreement, the settlement that could be made, where the Associated Press is reporting that while they want a full season, they would accept a 6 to 8 game suspension for Deshaun Watson with the NFLPA.
So she's got
And
all
that
the
they-
latitude in the world. Not
they
that she didn't
want
anyway.
what the NFL would prefer, according to the Associated Press. They would prefer to come to an agreement with the NFLPA where, based on what Sue Robinson decrees as punishment, is agreed upon, recommended by her, no appeal, it's in effect.
No appeal and no revision by Goodell.
It would be negotiated and settled, going back to the third option that I brought up yesterday. 6 to 8 games is vastly different than a full season, which goes like, so for all the public praise that the NFL is receiving through media, like they're finally taking a stance here. It's all a negotiating tactic to get absolutely what they wanted to begin with, which was 6 to 8 games, which is where we were 6 to 8 months ago on this timeline. This is maddening to me. And it's why that a tweet from Schefter or a tweet from Rappaport 4 months ago or 2 weeks ago can be sped up. And I'm not just singling them out, but those are the guys that we look at and say, man, the NFLPA is thinking this, or the NFL is looking at doing that. We have been referencing these reports now for weeks. And ultimately, as they get together in front of Sue Robinson, they will settle on whatever the suspension is going to be, which goes back in line with why did he settle the cases that he could right now, right before this meeting was going to take place, this hearing was going to take place. And it's because it would ease both sides to then agree on a possible suspension without an appeal. That's all this came down to.
I still think, I mean, this is one report. I mean, Maskey.
No different than the one report about the full season that everybody is group thinking on and just repeating and regurgitating.
I understand that, but I still think there's potential for it to be more than 6 to 8. I hope there is, based on how long they seemingly were targeting that. I hope they're not jerking it around so much. I don't understand how it goes from 12 to 8, how it goes from 17 to, or 17 plus indefinite to as low as 6 so quickly.
Unless they have some reasoning to think that that's what she's going to recommend.
I think they're going to get killed if that's what happens after the football fandom and the media have been conditioned for unlimited.
I agree they're going to get killed. I also don't think it matters.
Right.
I think it's all ether. That does not matter to the NFL. The quicker they get Deshaun Watson back, playing games with fans booing him, with eyeballs watching him play for the Browns, the better for their bottom line. I think there's going to be, some dissent from media, from fans initially, and I think they'll get over it by the end of the season.
So it goes back to Paul.
I don't know that that's right, Paul, but I think that's the way it's going to end up. I mean, people are going to be mad, but it's not going to matter to the NFL.
Was Deflategate 2017?
I'm not going to remember year by year.
It was a handful of years ago. But that offseason was fueled by that topic, right? And I remember distinctly having the topic on our show of 2015. Paul, you brought up, you're like, hey, no matter where you come down on this argument, because we had some heated discussions about how much it mattered, what it affected, and long-term what's going to be for the legacy of all, we can rehash that in other Mount Rushmore discussions for other shows. Point being, that's really all this offseason has been. A bunch of back and forth about if the NFL does this, then what? Or if they don't do this, what's deserving here versus what we've seen the court system play out versus what they didn't do a year ago. I mean, I think at this point, the NFL public is kind of just tuned out on it until we actually hear something. And let me just read straight from the Associated Press. I'm also told, this is Rob Mady of the Associated Press who's covering this.
One of those two.
I'm also told the NFL, despite insisting on indefinite suspension, wants to avoid the appeals process. And a source said, quote, a terrible situation for everyone involved, end quote.
That's getting Goodell out of it.
About the appeals process.
Yes.
So the league is more likely, this is straight from the report, the league is more likely to abide by Sue Robinson's ruling if she came back with 6 to 8 games.
It's so funny. Goodell used to want nothing more than to hand down the punishment. And now that says he wants nothing more than to be uninvolved in this punishment. Behind the scenes, he's involved in lobbying Robinson.
It's just
but then once she comes out, he wants nothing to do with it.
It is the perfect storm of a report for the NFL.
You want my theory as to why?
I mean, but the fact that Roger Goodell could say, man, we really want to indefinitely suspend this guy and give him at least a season, but Sue Robinson is the expert, so we're going to have to go by what she says here.
Here's
So
my theory as to
coming
why.
after.
No. It's so the United States House of Representatives doesn't call him to the floor again and ask him why he can so definitively rule the way he wants to on this.
But not Snyder.
But not on Snyder or any other point of emphasis that the NFLPA would bring up in their appeal.
That's good thinking.
And now that the NFL, in this setting, they can point to a former federal judge and what she recommended in Sue Robinson and what the NFLPA agreed to do. It's no different than settling a case in a civil case the way Watson's done. It's like it's signed, sealed, done, and we move on.
I agree with you, but it's only one step removed from that. They could still call him back and say, look, you have a process set up, a disciplinary process, where you put in place somebody you and the NFLPA agreed on, and this woman decided that Deshaun Watson got X.
Right.
Where's your process for Daniel Snyder?
Well, he would point to the independent investigator that he assigned to that
Okay,
deal
can we see
instead
the
of
report?
the Snyder. But see, that's a completely different aspect of it.
Right, but they just get right back where they left off.
Well, they come
Right.
back to that stupid, we're protecting the people who spoke to us in the report.
Right, they all have agreed
that.
with us.
But you see what I'm saying? Like, there's no I don't know how Goodell answers this by saying, like, the former federal judge who you appointed recommended 6 to 8 games, and you came back over the top and did more. Why have you not done more than what was recommended for Daniel Snyder?
No,
And
that's
so
fair.
why have you and the owners? You work on behalf of the owners. You're the voice of the ownership collective group. Why have you not done more? This is a way to simply point to a former federal judge, which is key here, who's been practicing as an attorney
got
for
the
the last
stripes.
5 to 10 years, I believe. You point to that and say, this is what she saw based on the independent investigation that took place. That's the only thing I can come up with as to why you push for a full season and then agree to 6 to 8 games.
And we had John McClain on yesterday, and he said this is unprecedented in the history of the league with what Deshaun Watson has been accused of with the amount of accusers. We've never seen anything like this. I'll also say it's pretty unprecedented that we've got this amount of accusers to go along with 2 grand juries not even filing charges, not even moving forward with a case. So looking at this from the NFL's perspective, if they want to defend themselves, or Sue Robinson does, that's a part of this they come back with. You know, if Roger Goodell gets called back in front to answer for this, and like you said, Hutton, he's going to say a former federal prosecutor, this was her recommendation.
No, judge. And also, I'm supposed to carry more weight than 2 grand juries that didn't even press charge. I'm already doing that by suspending the guy at all. So how much further do we go with it? There's enough, and again, I'm not trying to adjudicate what's right and wrong and what the proper suspension is or any of that. Looking at this through the NFL's perspective, there's enough cloudiness of this story that they can throw out a lot of different things to protect whatever direction they want to go in, whether it be a full season suspension or 6 to 8 games. This has been an off-season of litigation for the league in many facets and branches of their off-season tree. And now all of a sudden there is this rush to get this over with, right? There has been patience throughout from the disciplinary side of things. And without I haven't seen the formal, like, it's officially over, the independent investigation is wrapped up, and it's been turned over to Sue Robinson. Clearly it has.
Yes.
And she has also heard from the NFL and the NFLPA yesterday, according to reports, on their lobbying. And then after that, this report comes out from the Associated Press. There is this rush to conclude this from the NFL's perspective that is very intriguing. Because, I mean, we're we're a month from training camp opening up, and they want this completely wrapped up in some way, shape, or form from their side of things before they break camp at all, in not just in Cleveland, but across the league. Same way, I think they're trying to take Flores's lawsuit to arbitration. They're trying to get rid of that and get that over with. So there is, and I haven't seen where that has been ruled on, but they have filed for that. Point being, I think they're trying to get to the regular season, get to the football, and leave all of this other mess in the shadows behind us, and allow the topic to roll over to the actual games, which is what happened last year with this same scenario, with Watson and all the offseason mess. He was stashed away on the Houston roster, and then we didn't talk about it until the end of the season when he was traded.
Yeah. Periodically, we talked about how weird it was.
Yeah, that
he's
it
sitting
was very
there doing
quiet.
nothing.
Yeah.
This is all now a big wait to see what comes down. And it certainly created a lot of intrigue with the 6 to 8, 8 to 6 report on the heels of 17 plus or 17 with the petition to come back into the league report. So eager to see where it comes down. I think the league may be willing to settle for the 8 to 6, but is probably rooting that she comes down.
They're still lobbying for that, the full indefinite suspension, which would be a ban where he has to then reapply for be reinstated into the league.
See, why would they come public? Somebody must have leaked this other than the league, because he wouldn't want to come public with this, Goodell or the league, that they'd be willing to deal with a lesser suspension for the reasons probably behind the scene that you're talking about, that he doesn't want to face the congressional part of this. So they may be saying that somewhere, but they hate that it got out. Absolutely hate that it got out.
Yeah, and why would you, if the league holds the power in the appeal process, why do they care if it's appealed? That's my other thing. But again, it goes back to how Goodell would treat that, and he would act on behalf of the league and the ownership.
Well, what he could do if it's appealed to stay in line with what you're saying is
assign it to someone.
No, just say she's the one whose job this is. I'm not going to interfere in her discipline.
Yeah, we're going to go
so
by.
I pass on doing anything.
Why she was appointed to do.
That's what she was appointed to do, and it would have the same effect, right, as there being no appeal.
Give us your take on Twitter at OutKick360. More on this as news comes out throughout the day, because the hearing continues as of right now. Follow us on Twitter at OutKick360. Coming up in about 25 minutes or so, we have primary complaint. When we come back, we'll tell you about the ACC and how they have unveiled the new schedule format for football. Our take next on OutKick360. Primary complaints with OutKick 360 in 15 minutes. 6th and Peabody, our location. Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. TriStar Boxing has an event here coming up Friday night. 3 main card fights, I believe, based on the poster I was seeing outside. And they said, guys, we can be a part of this broadcast if we want to. Weigh-ins and everything.
I've got a family friend to invite us over Friday night.
Nice.
Sounds like they're coming over for fight night here.
It looks like throw some gloves at them. Let's make this like Rondo and Ray Allen. Let's duke this thing out. Let's box it out after the show on Friday. Hopefully I can stick around and partake in a little bit of this pugilism. It's going to take place at 6th and Peabody.
We're going to learn more about this event. Sanctioned event, fully promoted here at 6th and Peabody coming up this Friday evening. So the ACC has announced its schedule structure for the upcoming calendars for all of the current teams across the Atlantic Coast Conference. 3 primary opponents annually. I know we have a graphic for this. And the other 10 teams will play 2 times during the 4-year cycle. 1 main division is the key here. So if you're looking at a possible crossover to what the SEC might be looking at, what we've been giving our opinion on moving forward, the top 2 teams from this 1 main division in the ACC will then play for the championship in the first Saturday in December. That's the key here. The 2 divisions no longer there, and now you get the top 2 teams based on the schedule structure.
All right, give me the rest. You play your 3 primary opponents annually,
and then 5 rotating opponents that will cycle through every other year. So you play those opponents twice over 4 years. So you get to go everywhere in the conference, just like the SEC's plan would be.
And now you can look at the primary opponents. So let's just take Florida State, for instance. Florida State and Miami. If you were just doing this, if you're mocking this up, and you said, okay, who should the primary opponents be for Florida State? Miami's on there. You also put Clemson on there based on the recent matchups and the magnitude of those games. Like I'm thrilled that the brands of Florida State, Clemson, and Miami are primary opponents. They'll also play Syracuse on this list. Another example, Virginia Tech, Virginia, primary opponent. Virginia Tech and Pitt makes a ton of sense based on proximity. Wake Forest as well. I think they've done and put some thoughtful things together here. Duke and North Carolina are playing. That's a no-brainer.
Also, Duke and NC State. I mean, you've got the research triangle represented, playing each other every year. Duke, North Carolina, and NC State all within 8 miles of each other, their campuses. And then you've got another in-state opponent. That's another private school in Wake Forest for Duke.
But you've got some that are nothing.
I can't find many issues other than what you said, Paul, in that, who's Georgia Tech's big rival other than Georgia outside their conference?
Virginia and Louisville. That's nothing.
That's nothing. But I would argue Georgia Tech, Clemson, Georgia Tech, Louisville, and Georgia Tech, Wake Forest. Nothing. Which doesn't say a lot about Georgia Tech, quite frankly. Who was relegated in my column, by the way.
So they're not even in this conversation
in Chadsworth if we had relegation.
I think the teams that drive the interest
in the league,
that they did a nice job here. And it's a short-term primary opponent solution here. This is for 2023 through 2026. So they're not – I think what they've done is they have said, okay, here's what we are agreeing to as a conference for scheduling purposes for the next handful of seasons. But if we need to go and revamp this, or if our model changes with current conference programs that are either joining, or if there is an exodus from the NCAA where down the road we get to a mega conference, then you can structure this however you see fit. I like the short-term aspect to it, and it's just long enough, 2023 through 2026.
It's also, this is the blueprint. Like, it's not rocket science. It's kind of easy to figure out. It's going to be either or. When you expand conference games and add another one, and you eliminate divisions. You're looking at probably 2 different models that make the most sense, and I think this is the one. And looking at this makes perfect sense to me. You're not going to get, every team doesn't have that clear-cut, obvious rivalry game or games you have to keep every year. So none of it's going to be perfect.
Well, the Virginia Tech,
Virginia Tech
Miami will make some people unhappy. They have played every year since '92, and they've been playing since the '50s. But again, you can do this in the SEC and find examples of programs being left out. But if you're asking me who I want to see Miami play every year, Florida State's got to be on that list.
Absolutely.
First and foremost. And then you have to make every scheduling model is not going to be created equal.
Here's a question.
It's so difficult also for me to try to figure out what to do with a school like Boston College.
Yeah.
And clearly what they've done with Boston College is, let's make this the city school. Right? Let's get a Miami. Hey, Miami and Boston, Miami, New England has a nice little rivalry in the NFL. And in other sports, the Heat and the Celtics had a nice rivalry. Let's make Boston College and Miami an annual rival. Pittsburgh and Boston. Pittsburgh school versus Boston school. Syracuse, which is the New York State school, against Boston College. These are not games that get me excited, but quite frankly, I don't know what BC games would get me excited in the ACC.
What happened to the Notre Dame tie-in?
It's still there, but
it's a non-conference game.
They have refused to give up their independence, so they're not going to be in anywhere associated with the conference scheduling model.
They just help them fill out their schedule with 4 or 5 games every year. They're a partner in scheduling.
It'd be an extra game.
But there has been
it's a non-conference game for them, but yeah.
There has been a financial impact by scheduling Notre Dame on those throughout their schedule. The Athletics says $80 million increase on their revenue for the fiscal year of 2020, 2021.
It's smart because this is a conference that right now is not gaining ground at all on the likes of the SEC or the Big Ten. They're probably losing ground right now. So their partnership with Notre Dame is a no-brainer. I think the scheduling model is a no-brainer for the ACC. And we're going to see something similar with the SEC. And they're going to eliminate divisions. This is all going to happen in short order. And it's going to be announced before Texas and Oklahoma join the conference.
Well, and it's not Notre Dame's problem. That's an ACC problem that they've got to figure out about the Irish. And ultimately, the TV deal for the ACC with ESPN is extremely long term. It's like 2035 is when the current deal is set to expire. And of course, Notre Dame has NBC. So I'm not sure how you make that work if you truly were to put everything together.
And look, we all know that when Notre Dame decides to join a conference, they're going to join the SEC. So just like everyone else.
They'll join a power
They'll join the
league.
Big Ten or the SEC. The Big Ten makes a ton more sense geographically, but financially, they might end up joining the SEC if the SEC extends an invite.
Give us your thoughts at OutKick 360. Coming up, primary complaint. We will also get into Freddie Freeman firing his agency after the road trip in Atlanta wrapped up. This all happened the day after his last appearance at the plate in Atlanta. We'll discuss that decision and how the entire weekend went for Freddie in Atlanta and the comments from Clayton Kershaw about the whole scene in the ATL for Freeman. But first, our top grievance of the week, our primary complaint of the day. That's next on OutKick 360. OutKick 360 rolls on from 6th and Peabody. We broadcast daily here in downtown Nashville with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Coming up, we have headlines, which includes the Major League Baseball Commissioner, Rob Manfred, discussing league expansion. More on the Watson hearing that's taking place right now for the NFL and the NFLPA with a possible suspension. And the U locking in a 4-star quarterback and the payments that are reportedly out there for
allegedly
Jaden Rashada.
Allegedly. Now, there's a lot of backtracking going on.
Of course. That's where I'll start for primary complaint. While I don't think there will be backtracking initially, my primary complaint today is for Benedict Mathurin. Excellent player from Arizona. His backstory is something you should all look up about how his brother passed away whenever I believe he was 16 years old and the path that he's been on since. But the quote to the Washington Post about whenever the Pacers play the Lakers and how he expects to match up with LeBron James. The quote is, "I don't think anybody is better than me. LeBron is going to have to show me he's better than me." Here is my plea, and I'm going ahead and putting the primary complaint out there. I want to hear from Benedict Mathurin whenever he ducks and runs for cover as LeBron gets a fast break opportunity on him in the second quarter of that first matchup. You stand in there and get posterized like everyone else has. Because if you're going to call out the king and King James, no matter how you feel about LeBron James, the guy, the player, nobody in this draft is better than LeBron James, period. Especially the 6th overall pick. That's my primary complaint.
My primary complaint this week is Wimbledon fashion. And no, it's not the all-whites. I am someone who actually likes something that's stubbornly old-fashioned and classic, like Wimbledon. What I don't like is this that I'm showing on screen right now, and I'll tell you about. It's taking something that's classic and old-fashioned that I once worked at Polo Ralph Lauren at an outlet store. And yes, it's Lauren, not Lauren. Polo Ralph Lauren. I worked at an outlet store, and a guy who worked there as a manager once told me, you know what's great about Polo? You can wear Polo if you're a 7-year-old boy or you're a 77-year-old man, and you are not out of style. At any time in life, you can wear that Polo logo, and you can be in style wherever you are. And I agree with him on that. Unless you take the Polo logo and you blow it up to something that's gigantic and gaudy. And that's what Wimbledon has done with their officials. This is their official ball boy jacket. And I understand they want that Polo logo to pop on television where you can see it. But there's something called high-definition television now where I guarantee you if you had a normal-size Polo logo, you'd still be able to see it and know that they are a sponsor of Wimbledon. You take something nice, classy, old-fashioned, that's a small logo on the shirt, and you blow it up into something that looks like it should be on a NASCAR jumpsuit. That's my primary complaint for Wimbledon and Polo Ralph Lauren.
Velcro has taken a beating from me over the years. I think the banning of Velcro could help fix baseball's problems in terms of pace of play because guys fiddle with their gloves all day long. But I'm offering Velcro a reprieve here. My primary complaint, hospital gowns. I recently, I had this cancer spot removed. Some of you who were with us during that might remember it because every day we fielded a question about what was going on when I was wearing a Band-Aid and then after the Band-Aid when I had, stitches or a healing wound on my face. So now every 6 months I get the full body checkup looking for other potentially cancerous things on my body. So I go into the doctor and I put on the hospital gown. And you still have to reach behind yourself and try like hell to tie this. Maybe I'm going to go to this Iron Tribe, lose enough weight I could reach around myself, getting physical
mobility.
fitness, get my arms more flexible.
Paul's reach around.
But
Range of motion.
you have to reach around, thank you, Hutton, and tie this thing in a couple of spots, and it's really not an effective process. And it is 2022.
Could be quite effective.
Why wouldn't there be little Velcro tabs on the back of this gown where you could simply fasten it And then, if the doctor needs access or you need to help, you could, unvelcro it and unvelcro it. The hospital gown is outdated, needs an update.
Is there a cost reason for it? Like, I've always wondered the same thing. Like, why is this? I understand that they need easy access to examine or whatever, right? But you could just have buttons also where you don't feel like, what you are, which is nude in the back when you're walking around or you're in one of those gowns.
And just for the record, I was allowed to keep my underwear on.
Okay.
So I wasn't nude. I was nearly nude.
It's always the awkward feeling, though, putting the gown on.
It's very breezy. All doctors' offices get very
Cold
breezy
and
when it's
cold.
time to put on the hospital.
Ice cold.
Does your
like in
doctor during an exam
Feels great.
is it immediate underwear off when they're doing the exam, or is there just like a short period of time where it's underwear down then up?
This doctor...
I had this conversation with someone, I don't remember who, but I was thrown off when someone said, "Oh yeah, you immediately just strip down nude."
No.
In this doctor's office.
Well,
they
mine offer instructions. Okay, this is a female doctor, actually, but the nurse said when she comes in, she's going to want you to be blah, blah, blah. You can keep your socks and your underwear on.
Yeah.
And then she tested around the borders of the underwear, and she asked me if I had anything that I thought needed to look at.
This gives me an opportunity to plug.
And I did not have anything that I thought needed to look at in that area. But if I did, I would have unashamedly had her look at it.
The comedian Brian Bates has a bit on YouTube. I highly recommend everyone searching after the show. Brian Bates and his story about the hospital gown.
Brian Bates, who famously has a downtown condo that is not downtown.
It's in East Nashville.
Yeah. Overlooks downtown.
But it looks at downtown. You can see downtown from his condo. So
I'm still waiting on my invitation to drink at his downtown condo.
Going back to the polo shirts and the logo.
That's small compared to some I've seen.
There's
I've seen some really bad ones.
The one the lines judge, I couldn't find it. I was just searching images, but that's the official one they sell. The one that the lines judge I see wearing, I mean, it's the size of half the jacket.
Yeah, if you walk through Macy's, they've got shirts now that has it like... It's not. It goes from that little horse on your thing to it takes up the full breast, if you will.
But the marketing value.
I don't even understand who would like to buy that.
No.
And it's almost like they came in and said, "You know what? We should make polo, but worse. What do we need?
Let's go big.
I think we should change our image to trashier. Let's go. Let's sell it for less and make it bigger.
I don't think it's less.
More and worse.
But I think it's just as expensive.
I don't know when this turned into what they became. But they are the Kleenex of tissue paper. I don't refer to this as any shirt. A collared shirt, short sleeve collared shirt is a polo shirt to me.
Yep. Yeah.
That's what I ask for, even though it has nothing to do with the brand itself.
Was that a big deal at some point to have a polo shirt that was an actual polo shirt with the logo on it?
No, I mean
it was for us.
It's always been extremely an extremely expensive brand based on what you could buy. Other brands, Izod comes to mind. I'm trying to think of the other ones. The polo always represented more value that you were wearing, right? But
they hold up over time.
It was also a better shirt.
Like they fade
well,
nicely.
And it's called a polo shirt because the sport polo. Polo was smart to identify with their logo the guy on the horse playing polo. And turning their brand into Polo Ralph Lauren. So now, by association, we think polo when doing that.
You say
it's
Lauren.
all polo shirts, but we automatically think about that logo.
You say Lauren, but like some who say Grable, I'm just going to say Lauren.
It's fine. You can say it however you want. I'm just telling you how they taught us to say it at Polo.
Your folding skills, do you still put them to use?
I need a folding board.
They have one here.
Do they?
Yeah, they use them every day.
They do a lot of folding here.
Yeah, they have a folding board.
They have more shirts here than at the Ralph Lauren.
I forgot that
store
people had the folding board. I thought they were hand folding everything out there, but they've got this little contraption that folds the shirts perfectly.
It looks like the back of, if you were writing on something and you had a clipboard. Yeah. It just looks like that without the clip. And you fold on that. Maybe on a future primary complaint, I'll break out the folding board.
Who had more shirts, your outlet store or Old Smoky?
Probably Old Smoky, honestly.
They may sell more, too.
Well, now they do.
They go through them, man.
I don't know if the outlet mall exists anymore in Lebanon. I'm not sure what's there.
Senior citizens walk around.
It was bustling back in 2000. I'm going to tell you that much.
Headlines next, including Major League Baseball expansion. The commissioner has once again weighed in on the issue and topic. Second hour of OutKick 360 across the OutKick network rolls on from 6th and Peabody with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Coming up, we get into the Arch Manning effect on Texas. Wore the shirt on purpose today. We've got the Orange Bloods in studio.
Let me point out your shirt also.
Go
this
ahead.
is brilliant on the part of Cricket, who makes these shirts. But to not have to pay, I hope I don't get them in trouble by saying this, but to not have to pay the University of Texas. No, it's not getting the image. I'm saying to not have to pay the University of Texas a trademark on a shirt that's clearly a Texas shirt if you're at a Texas event.
Yes, it's got the helmet on the shirt.
By them.
Trying to make
and
this,
it looks really cool.
And it's only been one time right now because I have a reason to add it. They sent this to me saying, "Hey, if you ever take Outkick the Tailgate to Austin, here you go." Of course, we didn't. I guess we could in the future.
I would love to do that.
If nothing else, I'll pack this up and send this to Ellie, who can support her family member.
That's right,
Arch, who's now headed to University of Texas at Austin.
Fox does have a partnership with the Big 12, so while Texas is in the Big 12, maybe we could go and have some access to campus and to the stadium for a game. I've never been to Austin, Texas, and would love to go to a game.
So it's been less than a week. It'll be a week on Thursday when Arch Manning announced where he's headed, which is Texas, of course, and we will discuss the effect within less than a week, what he's had on recruiting. That's coming up in hour number 3. Headlines today, we continue to watch for any Deshaun Watson news or notes to pass along from the hearing that's taking place in front of former federal judge Sue Robinson, where the NFL and the NFLPA have both presented their cases for what they believe the suspension should be. And there's a report out from the Associated Press that there could be a settlement between the NFL and the NFLPA agreeing to a 6 to 8 game suspension if, in fact, Sue Robinson comes back and recommends that as the discipline for Deshaun Watson. Again, we'll keep you updated there. Another topic is Major League Baseball and expansion. This has been discussed a lot over the last 3 or 4 years, maybe a little longer than that. But I think the first thought of Major League Baseball expansion, there was an eye roll. And then there's, now the commissioner's talking about it. And, now there are ownership groups, not just here in Nashville, but sprinkled across the country, looking to be one of the 2 teams that they will add for expansion. And every now and then, Rob Manfred drops this in as what a main goal would be for the league. And he has again said, I would love to get 32 teams when discussing future expansion. Not movement, not relocation of like the A's or the Rays, but 2 more teams added to the league itself. And guys, why I don't understand the rush to add 2 more teams to the league right now that feels a little too big based on attendance figures. And I also can't argue against the local ratings aspect of what some of these teams pull on these cable networks, so regional sports networks. So, of course, monetary gain. They're going to be in Vegas. In fact, the A's, Major League Baseball, there was a report out, they have allowed, I think it was voted in yesterday or late last week, there will be no relocation fee for the Oakland A's if they move to Vegas. It's got to be approved by the league, but, it costs millions for the Raiders to move to Vegas on behalf of the NFL, for instance. They desperately want to get a Major League Baseball team in Vegas. That would be on relocation. The Rays, who knows what happens there. But beyond that, I keep reading this, guys, and I think Nashville's on the short list of teams or locations that could land an expansion team within the next decade because the commissioner keeps pushing the narrative.
Yeah. Where's the billionaire is the same question that we always have. So that's the big thing. I have trouble envisioning them expanding before Oakland and Tampa Bay are settled, right? So you got to get those things settled. And those are not new issues, right?
No, but the deadlines are coming up, especially for Oakland with the city and different votes.
The A's and the Rays have been in trouble for a while.
It's not dead, but they're
Oakland waterfront site.
No, not dead.
The
Howard
city, Terminal.
But let's get those 2 things done.
But
the deadlines are coming. But how long have they been in disarray? 6, 7, 8 years, both of them?
But I bring that up because Vegas is going to get a team.
Is it the A's or is it expansion?
Oakland's going to get a team. If Oakland hear me out on this. If Oakland, even if it's just taking too long or whatever, if Oakland loses the A's, mark my word, they will get that site approved for an expansion team eventually.
I don't think so.
And get another team. I think this is what's similar what happened with Cleveland is going to happen with Oakland. They have too much history
so you think it's
in
like
that market to not eventually.
The Oilers. That's
why I want this settled. Either the A's stay and Vegas is an expansion team, because if not, you're now suddenly throwing Oakland into the mix of expansion franchises.
But here's the problem, though. Here's the
Oakland
problem,
getting
though. Major League Baseball would, they've got San Francisco.
That's it. There's another team right there.
While they want this spot, this
Howard Terminal.
Yeah, the Howard Terminal. Thank you, which is right on the waterfront, right? Like this.
Yes, it's
it
close.
is a prime location. They have been battling back and forth so much with the city itself, and now they have opened the door to make a relocation so much easier as a vote is about to happen on behalf of the A's staying there. It's almost like they're leaking this out there to make it known to Oakland, like no matter what you do, they're leaving.
The Browns and the Oilers happened because Art Modell and Bud Adams, respectively, had terrible relationships with their cities. I don't think the A's brass has a terrible relationship with the city. I think they're fighting like hell to piece it
over
together.
Their city about
a stadium.
What was Bud Adams' beef with Houston?
The stadium.
What was Art Modell's beef?
But he had a bad relationship with the mayor.
New guy comes in.
Yes, but he
and has
hated
a good
the
relationship
mayor.
And gets it done.
But he and Bob Lanier, the mayor, hated each other.
They hated each other, in large part over a stadium.
No, but they were fighting, and they hated each other on a personal level.
Then you
hear nothing
making
about
my
A's
argument for me, Paul, because the next guy that comes in will have a great relationship with the mayor.
But you hear nothing about the current A's ownership and the current Oakland governance hating each other. I don't think that's the issue here. The issue is, can Oakland afford it and make it happen or not? I don't think it changes based on who the ownership group is. I think it's either happening or it's not happening. I think it'd be foolish for Major League Baseball to have a different A's group. It's either got to be this group or no group.
Here's the problem
the Oakland
with the
A's
spot.
are much more Cleveland Browns than St. Louis Rams, St. Louis Cardinals football. They're getting a team back.
But it's not
or
just
Baltimore,
the stadium.
For that matter.
It is the property. This is not just a $2 billion stadium that they're trying to get built at the Howard Terminal. Major League Baseball wants to control this entire area. It's a $12 billion project. And right now, it is sanctioned or they've got, it's designated, I guess is a better word, for port use. They want nothing to do with that. Baseball, I'm saying. They want that to be a baseball mecca where the city itself and the commissioners, they're voting on what to do with housing in that area, what to do for other businesses that they're trying to attach to whatever this stadium would include. And there's a lot of bickering over that, more so than it is like, what's the stadium look like and do we want to keep the A's? So I think typically a stadium negotiation, you're trying to negotiate something that's around $5 billion, like in that area of the country.
More than twice that.
$12 billion is a completely different story, especially with how much they've been going back and forth over the current lease and the way they've treated the current fan base and team and city votes.
I think it'd be one of the stupidest things ever to have a team.
They need 18 of the 27 commissioners to vote to redesignate the area for something beyond port use before they can even get to what a stadium build would look like and what the structure is around the area.
I'm not even thinking about as much in the ins and outs of the Howard Terminal project overall for the city. I'm thinking of it, the A's ownership, John Fisher, the A's owner. The A's are not a franchise that spend money at all, right? They're famous for not spending money and staying competitive with Moneyball. Your close proximity to Silicon Valley and Oakland, I really feel like we're looking at Cleveland Browns 2.0, 2.0. The city of Oakland will retain the rights to name the Athletics and the A's, And that
According
ownership
to
group
who?
can go to Vegas and how did the Browns do it?
Well, the Browns did it by mandate from the NFL. But
Mandate, but the Vegas
Baseball's
won't
not
care
gonna do
about the
that.
Vegas A's. Vegas can come up with their
it's
own
the
name.
same ownership group. The owner cares about it.
Do you think that the owner that's moving the team from Oakland cares so much about the A's name?
I bet he does.
And moving to Vegas that he has to keep it?
I bet he does.
I bet
he's
he'll
going to
be-
keep the record book. I
He'll
bet
be
you.
totally fine getting that paycheck by moving to Vegas
Well-
and naming it whatever. They could be the slot machines.
Who is it in
And he'll
Oakland?
take it.
Who is it in
Like a bit
They're
of
Oakland?
not going to
Aces.
care.
Chad, who is it in Oakland
The
that's
Blackjacks.
going to keep it? There's nobody in Oakland when he leaves to keep it.
Well,
Paul, how Oakland is close to the center of money in the tech industry. There is some billionaire out there who would love to own the Oakland A's.
Well, where is he? He should buy him. They've been in trouble
They're
forever.
not for sale because their owner.
They're not for sale, but
their
somebody's going to
owner-
buy the name and the record book?
Hear me out. Their owner wants Oakland to give them the world to stay with the Howard Terminal project, or he's going to Vegas to make billions. He's not interested in selling the team where they are right now. He's not going to sell low where they are now. That's a team. They don't even market tickets. There's a whole expose on the A's not even calling people to renew season tickets. They're trying to tank to get out because they know they're probably not going to get it from the city right now what they want.
Well, they don't want it.
Because they're going to get they're trying to get everything they want with Major League Baseball. Not going to happen. They move. Other billionaire steps up. And there's someone who says, I'll own the Oakland A's if I retain the right to that name, knowing their importance in this region. And boom, you get the A's back. I really
team's
think
ever done it.
we're looking at a Cleveland Browns situation all over again.
No team's ever willingly given up their history.
what we know is baseball has cleared the move for Oakland, the A's, to Vegas. By a relocation fee in baseball could cost as much as $1 billion. The Raiders paid like just under $350 million to move to Vegas. They have waived that relocation fee
Which
in
is
the
a
A's
big,
sense, and
big
it's
deal.
right on the cusp of this vote with the commissioners of the city there, which takes place tomorrow, about this whole port issue. So, coincidence that he's bringing this, the commissioner's bringing up the expansion at the same time, maybe, maybe not. But it's not like you don't hear Oakland and this site for expansion like you do Nashville, Montreal. We can continue to go down the path of other cities. It's either the A's stay or the A's leave, and I don't hear about the Howard Terminal one way or the other. But then I think the issue to keep in mind there is the votes are happening, and then once the votes happen, that's in some type of city contract through the commissioners for a foreseeable future. So it's very difficult to change whatever they're voting on for an expansion team if they're not going to do it for the Major League Baseball team that's there right now, because the construction's going to happen on that property. It's not like you put everything to effect and then you don't build on the property
Right. They'll
waiting
go a
on the
different
expansion
direction.
team.
Let
That's
me
why Major League Baseball has got to win their argument for how to use that port. And the city is looking at it from the aspect of who's paying for it.
Right.
And how much and how valuable is that to us versus how different avenues we could use the property.
Let me spin this somewhere else based on something you said earlier about the expansion teams. You understand the appeal of two expansion teams based on regional television ratings. And we've always talked about that. I use my in-laws as an example. Die-hard Philadelphia fans of everything, living in suburban Philadelphia. Phillies on their TV every night. And most of their neighbors the same way. So the Phillies are the number one rated TV show in Philadelphia every night. And there's huge value in that. People tend to discount that when they look at the popularity of baseball. It's a different deal. It's not a national deal. It's a local deal. That said, Yes Network in New York, which is what the Yankees are on, has been putting out some rating stuff lately, and it has surprised me. And I know this is out of the blue. So they put this out yesterday. They put this out June 28th. So about the June 27th game. Last night's A's-Yankees game was Yes's most viewed game in 4 years. And they put out the number of average total viewers. I'd like you guys to guess what that average total viewers for the Yankees, who are having an unbelievable season, in the biggest city, the biggest market, what do you think the average total viewers was?
Average total viewers over the course of the game, just any given minute?
Yeah, they've got highest quarter hour also.
300,000.
I was going to say like 450.
All right, 498. I saw 498 and I thought, wow, that's low to me.
Well, I'm trying to think of how many households have the Yes Network outside of the market. Like that's also counting,
So
isn't it?
my family has it in South Central New Jersey.
But it can't be.
Highest quarter hour was 637. I was just thinking, I was expecting, I would have started at 750, thinking of the size of the market.
The biggest in years or whatever.
Being on a network or being
Biggest
on
in 4 years.
ESPN matters. Something available everywhere. That's the big difference.
But, I mean, the Yankees are huge there. They're obviously having this tremendous year. If everybody in New York, if it's the highest rated thing in New York, understanding that some people are watching the Mets, that still just doesn't sound like a mammoth number to me. That sounds like a mammoth number for the Rangers if the Texas Rangers are having a monster year.
That sounds like an average number, not the top number, but an average number of what a network is going to pull for the NHL on a random Saturday or Sunday afternoon on a network broadcast.
Well, because I just saw the numbers.
We saw the number for the USFL, and they were on par with the NHL on a network broadcast on NBC.
It was more than English Premier League on NBC, more than NHL regular season.
So that's on par with this.
But also, I just saw the numbers. College World Series championship game was 1.6 million people. The softball championship was 1.7. Softball highest number reach was 2.1 million viewers. Now, Paul, that's ESPN in prime time, right, for the softball women's national championship game, getting what? About 4 times the amount of viewers?
And this was a Monday night.
And again, that's Yes
Regional.
Network.
Regional.
That's a pretty good number to me.
Completely regional.
When you look at it that way. That's the entire country
that's good context.
that gets ESPN, and it's about 4 times the amount for a national champion.
Of a
and
regional.
That's a good number for them.
And this is a regional network.
USFL debut on Fox on a Saturday night on a network did 3.5 million. And that's the biggest number of the year.
Yeah, in that
for
context.
the Yes
but
in that
Network, I think
context, that's
good.
very good. Yeah.
So I hear that. I mean, I get it. At first, you think, man, there's how many people in New York City Metro?
I don't even know.
But then how many are actually
like
subscribers to that
I feel
content?
like at one point it was like the size of the state of Tennessee, which was like 7 million people. When you count everything around there, it's like 7 or 8 million. Maybe it's less or more than that now. But yeah, I mean, if you put it compared to other major sporting events,
18.8 million.
Wow. And 400,000 watching the Yankees on an average. And that number is changing. There's more than 400,000 people.
It was 600,000 at the peak of the game for the big moment.
It's pretty good.
Yeah. That was good context.
Coming up, Jaden Rashada to the U, and payment or not payment, things that have been said, things that have been tried to put to bed or swept under the rug on the 4-star headed to the U. We'll discuss what all it means and the bickering that's back and forth between another university and the U, something we haven't seen in a while, quite frankly. We'll get into that, plus the SEC strength of schedule, and not your everyday suspension handed down from Major League Baseball for a brawl that took place over the weekend between the Mariners and the Angels. All of that and more straight ahead on OutKick 360. Here is a headline from 3 days ago that will shock none of you if you're a college football fan in today's world. OutKick 360 rolls on. Headline: Jaden Rashada reportedly agreed to $9.5 million NIL contract with Miami booster John Ruiz. The same John Ruiz who the NCAA flew down and met with like 3 weeks ago. And who he voluntarily decided to meet with, and we had a huge discussion on why you would even bother to chat with them, because, again, what are they going to do?
How good is this guy for 9.5?
But I
He's
see
a 4-star prospect. I saw.
But
what's a five getting?
Well, according to some reports, $8 million.
8, yeah. It's based on who you're up against, really, right? And the time of all this. So now this has sparked the Florida NIL collective against Miami, where Florida's NIL collective is releasing statements. And you've got other people going back and forth over $9.5 million. How much was Rashada paid, or will be paid? All of this stuff. Chad, it is he's a 4-star recruit who was highly sought after in the state, and we have gone from on-field rivalry to now recruiting rivalries based on which booster is going to step up and pay the most.
Can you imagine John Ruiz in that meeting with the NCAA saying, hold on, guys, I got to take this real quick.
I got a text here.
I got a 4-star quarterback on the line.
I need to get
about coming to the U. Hold
I
on
need
one
to
second.
get his routing number. 1 second.
What's the line from Major League? I got a guy on the other line about some white walls when he's at the tire store, when he gets offered the job to coach the Cleveland Indians. No, this doesn't surprise me at all. And I said it when the NCAA wanted to talk to John Ruiz. I would have told him I'm too busy and not to even meet with them.
Oh, I should.
If I was John Ruiz.
I want to point this out.
He met with them.
About the Gator Collective, the report also included that that Rashada turned down an $11 million offer from Florida to go to Miami.
Well, it's odd because there's John Ruiz is the big booster that's giving money to people at Miami. There's a lawyer involved that's repping Jaden Rashada.
Michael Caspino.
Michael Caspino also, he runs his mouth.
Sounds like a character on SNL.
It's On 3 Sports that has the initial report, right? He runs his mouth to On 3 Sports about, and we left money on the table. And he's talking about all this, and then comes back, and you hear the truck backing up, and he says, well, hold on now. There's nothing in writing yet. We have no deal signed. Then they asked, well, when could you expect a deal? He said, the next few weeks. And I'm thinking to myself, that's still technically illegal under NCAA rules because he's not going to be in school in the next 3 weeks. If you're signing a deal with him, you're saying, I don't know why they're saying the deal is done. There's nothing in writing, but we expect it to be done in the next 3. It's the same thing. You got paid to play, and the deal's coming a little bit later, right? I don't care. The whole back and forth is just funny to me. And I think that story getting out, that first off, it's a great win for Miami. I mean, however you want to slice it. They got a kid for less money, allegedly, than the Florida Gators got this kid, allegedly.
And their collectives,
for $11 million.
They're denying it.
But the fact that it's now out that the Gator Collective is offering $11 million for a 4-star quarterback in California, that's going to get some more interest in Florida.
I think it would until the collective itself, the Florida Collective, releases a statement saying they don't believe in these practices and that they've never had any dialogue whatsoever with Mr. Caspino in California. So they're saying that, no, we didn't offer him anything. We had no dialogue about this. When I think you're right. I mean, he takes $9.5 million, but here for a 4-star, you're like, well, we're the collective that offered 11.
We were also surprised when
who's next in line?
When Nick Saban and then Jimbo Fisher holds the press conference, just goes scorched earth on Saban. We're surprised because we don't see head coaches do it that often.
Yeah.
These bloated ego booster guys that are doing this now, the wars that could go on between them and what they could say back and forth is going to be highly entertaining. Because what if the Gator Collective came back and said, no, actually, this guy's wrong. We didn't talk to him at all. So Miami outbid us by $9.5 million. If you just put it on them and said, we offered the kid nothing. It's Miami that had to give him $9.5 million to get him to go to that school. We're not offering guys anything right now until they get here. The boxing match, the verbal boxing match you could get back and forth with these schools now through collectives could be an entertaining sideshow with this.
It's all semantics.
Here's the sub-story to this to follow. It's Billy Napier and his start on campus as the head coach of the Florida Gators. Because NIL or not, collective or not, recruiting has not started off very well for him, for the Gators. And to put it in perspective, he's running a program right now that back over the weekend where I looked this up, they're, according to 24/7 Sports, they're ranked 36th in the country in recruiting at Florida. That puts them behind right now for the next year's signing class. Puts them behind Duke, behind Northwestern. It puts them behind SMU, who is killing it on the recruiting trail from the transfer portal perspective. They are crushing it.
Found their niche.
36th doesn't just, you can't just say, well, we're 12th, but we're 5th in the SEC. How far is that getting us? No, they are falling way behind. And meanwhile, you've got Napier who's talking about,
Hey, let's put that in perspective.
Go ahead.
36th, right, for them. Just in the SEC alone, I'm looking right now at consensus recruiting rankings for 2023, this current class.
Okay.
Texas is 2. We'll talk about them a little bit later. future SEC team.
Where are they right now? Are they still 36th? I don't know if Florida's had a recruit over the last, 48 hours that would change my notes here. So I want to give them credit if they're higher than that.
Well, according to this list, they're 18th.
Okay, so they've landed someone. Is this 24/7?
This is the consensus football team rankings at On3 is where I go. Because they again, one service might have them way up or way down.
Sure.
I like the one that combines all of them. So they're 18th, but they're behind Texas at 2, Alabama at 4, Georgia at 5, usual suspects, right? By the way, Louisville's 8th nationally right now in recruiting, killing it. Arkansas 10, Tennessee 11, A&M 13, and then Florida and LSU right there at 18 and 19.
So 24/7 on Sunday had them 36th. And again, SMU, Rutgers, Duke, Northwestern, those are teams ahead of them.
Pump up Rutgers.
So it has not started fast for Napier's tenure there. Now, this is the team that went 6-7. You can argue that it's Georgia and the SEC East, and then there is a big battle right now for the second best team, and Florida is not the hot selection anymore. Beyond that, though, he's giving his talking points right now are here's something he said in an open letter to Florida supporters, Billy Napier, and I like the guy. I think he's a fantastic coach, and he was that way at Louisiana. And I hope he has success because I want guys like him to continue coaching at a high level in college football. But I think there's one thing missing from an open letter to supporters here. We play in one of the most iconic places in college football, the Swamp. This year's Orange and Blue game gave us a small taste of what playing in front of Gator Nation is like, and we can't wait to get started this fall by hosting Pac-12 champion Utah on September 3rd under the lights. We are working on creating a new future through a journey that emphasizes discipline, toughness, detail, accountability, integrity, and most importantly, teamwork. Now, he also emphasizes NIL and discusses an $85 million facility that will make an impact within their program and also benefit all Gator student athletes. But, man, at some point you have to talk about winning. Got to talk about winning. And I didn't see that word in the open letter to Gator Nation on behalf of Billy Napier. I think this is an uphill climb that unless you start getting some momentum early, it's hard to get out of a rut in the SEC, no matter what division you're playing in. And while he can go in and coach these guys up, it is a long road to hoe, so to speak, when it comes to actually seeing results for a program that's going to demand more than 6 wins a season.
He's got a super talented quarterback. That's a good start to his career there, and Anthony Richardson, who I think is going to do big things.
Yes.
I also am naturally skeptical because he sounds like every other failed Saban assistant, quite frankly. They all come in saying the exact same boilerplate process, infrastructure,
I
teamwork,
would compare this more to
all of that. Now, the one area where he's different is he's immediately come in, and Florida has granted him the money and resources to hire just an enormous amount of staff. He's got a bigger staff, I think, than Alabama right off the bat of support people that he's brought in for that whole system to take place. All these analysts and everyone that he's wanted, he's gone out and hired. So that's encouraging for Florida. But let's look at Saban assistants that have done well. There's really 2. Kirby Smart went back to his alma mater, and he had never been a head coach. He was an assistant. He was a very highly trusted guy and competent coach under Saban at Alabama. Kirby Smart played safety at Georgia. He goes back home, and it's worked perfectly because you knew Kirby Smart was going to recruit like gangbusters to his alma mater, and he has. And it's worked well. And he's a really good coach, too. The other one is Jimbo Fisher, who has, in the pantheon of Saban-light coaches, has not been touched by Lord Saban nearly as much as other ones, right? He's had his experiences with him, but he's got a lot more influences other than Nick Saban in his coaching tree. And he has coached under Saban, but then he went out and he did it at Florida State, right? He didn't get what he wanted initially at LSU, goes to Florida State, wins a national title. So am I leaving someone out? Those to me are the two. The other ones that have passed through, like Lane Kiffin, he's not a Saban guy.
No.
He just happened to get hired by Saban when he was trying to rehab his career and did well.
Here's, I don't disagree with what you're saying on the Saban tree, but here's the disconnect I haven't seen in Gainesville that I think it's starting. It's been going. It's been churning, and it's more than just message board driven. In college football, if you have, and maybe they don't have a blank check, but you're right about the money he's been given to go hire his staff. You're not hiring your staff. Let's be real here. You're not hiring your staff and spending the big bucks for a guy to go coach up the second string linebacker. You are hiring your staff to win this part of the football season, which is the recruiting season. And the results are not there. You don't hire your staff and your first big momentum wave is 36 in the country. That is alarming. And while he's not on the hot seat, it is something to pay attention to. Because when you start picking coaches out with recruiting background, that's really what you're paying for. And even some really bad coaches with a good assistant coaching hire can go and make waves on the recruiting trail and get the fans behind you before you even kick the football off. That is not happening in Gainesville.
And not just
you see where I'm going with that?
Not
with
just
the staff itself?
Yeah, and not just the overall recruiting ranking, but, and I forget where I read this piece about this, but pointing out that Miami's got their guy they targeted at quarterback. Tennessee went out and got their guy they targeted at quarterback. All of these top quarterback, the high-end 4-star or 5-star guys are falling in line with where they're going to go. And when you start to go down the quarterback carousel and you swing and miss a number of times, you end up with a 3-star guy that you didn't necessarily want in the beginning. And that's the concerning part right now for Napier, is that he does not have that quarterback in this class that they desperately need to get in this class. And they just lost one to Miami.
And you can win games by having a coach in college football that is able to improve the talent that he recruits. Taking a 3-star and turning him into a 5-star talent, that's another coach speak aspect that we'll hear. You don't win SEC championships or play in Atlanta by doing that. That's not realistic. And that's what's expected at Florida. Am I wrong in pointing that out as well?
No.
Eli Drinkwitz can get away with that.
Yeah, Florida fans aren't going to accept that. Florida fans believe that you hire a coach and within a year, you're competing with Georgia at the top of the division.
This is also a place.
Give them a year, and by year 2, you need to be there with Georgia.
It's also a place that has turned into not an easy place to go win. Dan Mullen failed. I was shocked by that. They got rid of Dan Mullen. They ran him out and went and hired Billy Napier as their replacement. No offense to Billy Napier, but it's not like you went and hired, you didn't go the LSU route or the Texas A&M route, where you go overpay for a coach and a proven guy who's gone on to compete for college football playoff berths and win the national recruiting championship. You went and hired Louisiana's coach, who LSU wouldn't hire because he was Louisiana's coach. But it was good enough for Florida.
The Mullen thing is strange because he did have some success. He gets them to Atlanta. He's doing some good things there. And then the bottom just falls out, and Florida's always been quick to react. I would like to see more of these athletic directors look at the actual landscape of the conference and just recognize, man, Georgia and Alabama are just light years better than everyone. So if our normal comparison is up against Georgia, maybe change that in the short term and then adjust it a little bit, and you keep guys around a little bit longer until they can get truly up into that stratosphere. But that doesn't happen at places like Florida.
Well, it doesn't happen when you're 36 nationally.
Have they done anything out of the transfer portal to offset that?
Nothing crazy in that regard.
I'm trying to think of who I can't remember a notable transfer they've landed.
You can, I'm going to preface it.
I'm sure they've gotten someone.
You can take a 2- and 3-star recruit at Louisiana and coach them up and win a conference. I'm not saying that can't happen in college football. I'm talking like top-tier Power 5 college football. I don't see the champions out there who take, the recruiting trail and then these guys blossom once they get on campus. I'm talking about in totality. You can do that at a Conference USA level, but not in the SEC.
And the Sun Belt also, at Louisiana, he had built a program where he's going to get the top recruiting class in the conference every year. So It's very easy to win the
Well, speaking
conference.
of transfers, he's getting guys from Louisiana to transfer to Florida,
But
one of his offensive linemen.
And when you're in the Sun Belt and you're, winning Sun Belt recruiting,
He was a good player.
you're probably going to win the conference.
Yes. I want to preface this again. I want Napier to have success because I like the fact that you can go get a guy that coached at Louisiana and has earned the right to then take over a program in the SEC. I don't know if the patience level is going to be what's needed whenever you start out by hiring and boasting about a coaching staff and how much money's being levied to these guys to hit the recruiting trail, and there is no momentum there.
I'm
Post
interested.
Mullen, you got to be patient a little bit with the next guy, don't you?
I'm interested. I don't know, because they were so impatient with Mullen. I mean, they pulled the plug on him the moment it went south. It was quickly. Season wasn't even over yet, and he had a bad year, and they weren't, that he's out. So I'm interested to see if Napier can work from this perspective. I don't know what his identity is. He's a good coach. He learned under Nick Saban. He did a good job running the Louisiana program and was always, interviewed well. People wanted him at other jobs. He kept turning them down. But if you ask me to name a specific characteristic of Napier teams, I can't tell you what it is. I don't know what his offense is. I don't know that they do something special or unique on defense. I don't know what really his track record is as a coach. I say that because other hires across the league, Josh Heupel, you now know 1 year in exactly what they are. They're going to snap the ball as quick as possible. They're going to run about 8 plays.
There is identity.
But they're going to do it in a sequence that's going to fool you, and they're going to hit a big play on you, and they're going to wear you down and surprise you early on with their style of play. That's Josh Heupel. If you sign up for that, you know what you're going to do on offense. You know what his team's about. Eli Drinkwitz even. He comes in as this guy who was known as someone who could fit any offense to the personnel that he had. He's an offensive guru, so to speak, right? I mean, on down the list of hires in the SEC, you sort of know what you're getting with them. And again, this is no knock on Billy Napier because he's just known as a really good, solid football coach. I don't really know what he is. And that whole mission statement he laid out, okay, great. I mean, I could put a bunch of fancy words together, too, about teamwork and synergy and building blocks and everything else. And, you could be Nick Saban. You could also be Butch Jones when you put all those words together.
You'd think what they'd say is it's going to take him a year to get his traction. Nobody wants to hear that.
Yeah, but when you're hiring assistants, Paul, you're bringing guys with you on the recruiting trail. Do you have more momentum? Davey Hudson sends us you have more momentum than a 4-star cornerback from Georgia as your lead transfer other than Louisiana.
Who I'm guessing probably wasn't playing at Georgia is why he left. Or he was sitting behind someone.
Point being, you're not 36 in the country as of last weekend on 24/7 Sports at Florida. This isn't Billy Napier, head coach at Missouri.
Yeah, he should be better, for sure. It's good news for Tennessee fans, right? It's good news for
And at some point,
I don't know
Georgia
because, Tennessee lost to Jim McElwain. I mean, I don't know that anyone at Florida, that they could hire you, Paul, and you might beat them.
You might still lose to them, but it's not because they're bringing in buckets of talent.
it's not your everyday suspension for the Mariners and the Angels. Wait until you hear who was suspended by Major League Baseball because of this brawl. That's next on OutKick 360. So, Paul, right before the break, he said who wasn't suspended from the Mariners-Angels brawl that took place over the weekend with suspensions. The interpreter was suspended for 2 games. It's that I can't recall reading through a list of suspensions and seeing interpreter on the list of suspensions.
Find you an interpreter that'll throw hands for you, and that's the interpreter you want to hire for your Major League Baseball
One thing
team.
that really bothered me, and I think it was a written report that I saw first. I saw some highlights going on. This is when we were hosting a party for a kids' baseball team, so I saw it going on, but I wasn't really paying close attention. Then the first thing I read a report of it before I went and found highlights of it, and it said, a big melee with people apparently throwing punches. This safeguarding of the language. Like, if you look at that, there are clearly punches being thrown. Right. Why do you have to say apparently? Like, if you're a reporter and you're watching that, it's clear there are punches being thrown. Saying apparently throwing punches is ridiculous. The other thing is, I don't know how I feel. They threw an opener who I don't think was scheduled to throw, clearly with the intent of retaliating for pitches they didn't like the day before. Everybody's saying, well, they played 8 times in 15 days, whatever, things got heated. I think there's a degree of this, which is the nature of the game, and the pitch that got all this started was not high and tight to the head.
But Phil Nevin was suspended the most, right? It was like 10 games because of he made the call. The manager made the call to
start the opener,
get this going.
Yeah, failed Yankees third base coach.
Yeah, intentional throwing at pitcher Andrew Wantz while warnings were in place. That's what Major League Baseball said.
It was not your everyday run-of-the-mill suspensions because it was not your everyday run-of-the-mill brawl. I put in air quotes that you see in Major League Baseball because usually it's a bunch of guys staring at each other, yelling at each other, a little bit of pushing and shoving going on. And normally you watch one of these fights and we thought the old line of they don't want to fight.
Patty cakes.
These guys don't want to fight. There were some guys who were ready to fight in that one. It was a mixed bag. Some of the guys, I've watched it, any good fight I'll watch 50 times. About 70% of the dugout that stormed the other side kind of came in ready to maybe break someone up or do some trash talk. The other 30% came in throwing haymakers.
Including Rendon, who's got a cast on one arm and is throwing punches with the other.
Immediately came in and grabbed someone by the jersey, hockey fight style, and threw a couple punches. They didn't land many in a great fashion, but they were throwing some haymakers.
Still, I thought the best visual was the super slow-mo of a guy throwing a crate full of bags of seeds.
Oh, yeah, it was
because you see
very
that
artistic.
Very artistic with the seeds coming, bags coming slowly out of the crate and all of it flying. And then the guy's picking up the pieces of bubble gum from another thing that came out. They're cleaning up gum. They look like kids who were yelled at by their mother. Now, you go clean that up.
Has an interpreter ever been suspended? Like I just
If
take that
so,
as,
I would think it would be for misinterpreting.
Yeah. Jesse Winker was suspended for throwing the double bird.
Which he apologized for. He said, I'm not apologizing for anything else, except I shouldn't have thrown those double birds because the fans, they pay their hard-earned money to come out and see us. They deserve better than that, especially to the women and children. I apologize.
I'm always surprised by like the suspensions and how they divvy these out for any league because you can always compare it to what they've recently done. And so you have Pham who slaps he slaps Peterson, right? And gets, 2 games? Was it 2 games he was suspended for? Maybe it was more. But it certainly wasn't 10 to 12 games.
I think it was like 2 or 3 games, but the first one he served that day. He didn't play that day after doing it.
So and when he came back, I think he had like soreness or something, so he didn't play immediately. Point being, like, I don't know where they come up with 10 games, 7 games for a double bird when on camera during warm-ups a player slaps an opponent in the face. Over fantasy football. Like, a lot of this stuff doesn't make any sense. The interpreter, meanwhile, like, this guy's getting a raise for joining in on the squad.
He was out there to translate. He was out there translating the cursing during the fight. He was translating.
All right. He earns respect at the same time. Headlines next across OutKick 360. Final hour, just like that. OutKick 360 on the Wednesday edition. Broadcasting across the OutKick network, we say good afternoon. Hopefully the afternoon turns into the drive home for you post-work. Hit us up on Twitter at OutKick 360. That's where you can find us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and everywhere in between. You can find the podcast the exact same way, wherever you download your audio. 6th and Peabody, our location here in Nashville, with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Headlines out there. Associated Press had the report early this morning, at least that's the first I saw it, was that the NFL and the NFLPA could come to some type of settlement, discipline settlement for Deshaun Watson, where the NFL would come to terms with the NFLPA on a 6 to 8 game suspension for Deshaun Watson with the guarantee that there would be no appeal on that. Nothing has come of today's hearing as far as news is concerned as we open the final hour of the show. And we'll keep you updated on the Watson hearing with Judge Sue Robinson, who's hearing the discipline case on behalf of the NFL and NFLPA for Watson. Speaking of just judges and committees, last week we're discussing Goodell in front of the U.S. House Oversight Committee. The Senate Judiciary Committee is looking at an aspect of Major League Baseball that could change their minor league structure. They are examining the legality of MLB's antitrust exemption, which could lead to whether or not their current structure, their minor league structure, is in fact the best and fairest way to go about the climb to the majors and how they treat everything. Interesting to follow, because we've long said that they have way too many things beneath the surface of Major League Baseball for the minor system, and it's been reduced in recent years. But even still, I mean, you could point to several instances where it just seems like overkill in certain cases.
Well, they don't treat these guys very well in most instances. I remember a list that came out not too long ago that kind of had check marks and columns. You know, do they provide housing? If they do, you have a single room, or you're expected to share the room? You know, what kind of food? And a lot of it's counterintuitive. It really is. I mean, you think of how much the NFL wants to get their hands on guys and how eager it is to feed them and get them on nutrition plans. How some teams give them, you know, specific protein shakes at specific times of the day with their names on them that suits a particular guy at a particular position's diet. And the Major League Baseball is content with guys piling out of the clubhouse and going to the Wendy's or the Chicken Shack across the street. I would think they'd value their commodities. We know the hit rate is less. But if one of these 15 guys, just one, is going to turn out to be a major player for your franchise, even for 4 years, 5 years, and he's a building block, wouldn't you want to start to nurture him in every way possible as soon as possible? They don't take it that way at all.
There's too many players.
They don't value him that way.
I think if the NFL or the NBA or any other pro sports organization had 6 or 7 teams to worry about, and all these rounds and all these guys coming
Nobody
through,
has 6 or 7.
they would send them off to Wendy's also.
Yeah.
I mean, it's too much. There are too many players, too many teams out there, and I don't put more pressure on the major league teams to get the drafts right. I mean, if you're going to do something, if you want everyone to get treated professionally and have a professional diet plan and workout regimen and give them great living conditions, then have less teams, have less rounds. But also in doing that, people that want to complain about these guys have to travel in a bus and they get they also get to say they're professional baseball players. And you're going to eliminate a lot of jobs doing that. They can go make a living doing a lot of other things. It's not nearly as cool as saying you're a professional baseball player. And maybe the trade-off is a bus ride or not the best meal plan or whatever it is, but there's a lot of guys who are willing to make that trade-off.
I don't mind
I
don't mind the bus ride and stuff like that, the hardships of it, but I do mind the stuff that affects your play, like the nutrition stuff. And I don't think it's asking much for you to spend if you're a Steinbrenner.
Well, this is
some money that reaches into your minor league system and might help develop your
This is more about Major League Baseball assuming control of the minor league system, which they didn't necessarily regulate to this extent, if I'm reading the report right, until 2021. And they're using the antitrust exemption as part of the reason why they point to, on the argument on behalf of the minor league players, improvements in pay and living conditions, because right now the salary range for minor league players this season is between $4,800 and $15,400 for their salary based on where they're drafted. And then the contract, the way it reads, is that a team has the right to you hold the rights to players for a total of 7 years in the minors and 7 more if the player reaches the majors. Not just stays in the majors, but reaches the majors, with no option to play elsewhere professionally unless the team releases the player. So I guess you can't
it's
just...
pretty restrictive.
And so the Department of Justice, and you've got the Senate committee through Senators Chuck Grassley and Richard Blumenthal and several others. The chair of the committee is Dick Durbin from Illinois. You've got this bipartisan group looking at the antitrust exemption, specifically that, and trying to figure out if Major League Baseball more or less is using this as a loophole in order to pay and then treat the minors a certain way.
Underpay. Certainly those salaries sound like they would wind up being less than minimum wage. I've always confused how anything exists that allows somebody to get away with that.
That's not tip-based.
Yeah.
Because you can pay the service industry people below that as long as they're getting tips.
And then if there's a loophole where you hold their services for 7 years, and then if you, I don't know what the length is, if you put them up to the majors, right, what kicks in there contractually just for, the drink of water
Retaining
at the majors for the contract to then continue. Chad.
Meanwhile, by the way,
Yes.
this is coming down from Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN. 76er star James Harden has declined a $47.3 million option to become a free agent.
Is he getting that money on the market?
He keeps real the possibility of negotiating a new deal that would deliver the Sixers roster building flexibility in free agency. So think about that.
Who's paying him $47
Russell
million?
Westbrook, a day yesterday, opted for that option with the huge amount of money with the Lakers, and James Harden declines it.
Well, this also affects the storyline of the 76ers because they traded for him in the middle of the season, and it never really latched on, and they ended up being one of the disappointments based on where they were around January, February. So, and you've got one of the best players in the league that's now without James Harden, but they didn't improve with him. So is this a benefit in a way? By not having Harden?
It seems like a win-win. I don't know that it's a win-win. It's a win for the Sixers. I don't know that it's a win for Harden based on what he's going to get on the open market. It's a curious decision, and it also is worded in a way that's basically saying he's maybe doing this to give roster flexibility to the Sixers where he may sign there. So is this a hometown discount scenario for a team he's barely played on?
There's no way he's giving a hometown discount.
Exactly.
He's going to make more.
It's crazy.
But if there's a loophole there for the annual average salary or whatever it is, maybe that exists.
I think this is one of the toughest things in sports with these NBA guys who don't play hard all the time. How do you invest in them, and how do you get through to them to get them to play hard closer to 100% of the time, knowing it's not going to be 100% of the time? But I couldn't handle it as a fan. That's why it's not my sport. I couldn't handle it as a coach. I couldn't handle it as a teammate. I don't know how you watch that and know that the guy probably isn't giving me a full game tonight, and might not show up for Thursday night's game in terms of any kind of effort. And he's going to make $47 million for it.
Yeah, and it's up to him on whether or not he wants to make that.
Yeah.
The team is kind of just waiting on him to figure out if he wants to make 47 or become a free agent.
Yeah, he turns it down in Philadelphia, and somebody else. It seems to be no question that somebody else will give it to him.
It's hard to figure out some of these contracts for the NBA. Chad, your review of Elvis, the latest film.
Deliver it in Elvis's voice.
I will not do that. I did not have an Elvis impression. It's very, very good. I would describe the movie as powerful. And what I mean by that is the music is powerful. The volume at which it's played in the movie is powerful. There are big moments in pop culture history that are covered through the movie in a very grandiose way. Baz Luhrmann's an interesting director. Anyone who's seen Romeo and Juliet with Leonardo DiCaprio and Claire Danes knows what I'm talking about. Australia, Moulin Rouge, Great Gatsby. Great Gatsby was his last film was 9 years ago, 2013. Has not done a full-length feature since then. The beginning of the movie is very abrupt because it takes you a minute to get yourself set in that world. Like it's not shot like most movies, right? So right when it hits, you're thinking, what is this? It's kind of disorienting to start the movie, the way it's shot and the way it's done. The guy who plays Elvis, Austin Butler, should win every award known to man. He is unbelievably believable as Elvis. The speaking voice he does for Elvis, I mean, you think that he's lip syncing Elvis's voice, which he is when he's singing, which makes sense if you can't sing like Elvis, who had a huge voice. And the music scenes are great. I'm watching performances in Vegas, performances from the 1968 NBC special that was Elvis's sort of comeback to the original Elvis. And the amount of time, I say this about any biopic where you got someone that everyone knows and has seen, the amount of time spent researching, watching YouTube videos, watching a performance to nail it in a way. I think of this with Rami Malek on Bohemian Rhapsody, to nail Freddie Mercury that way on the Live Aid performance. I mean, movement for movement throughout a 12-minute sequence in a concert. It fascinates me. Austin Butler nails that a number of times with live performances, and the way he can channel Elvis physically. There's a physicality to Elvis and playing him that I think this actor absolutely crushed. Someone who I didn't even know, going into this. I had to look up what he has done in his past. He's 30 years old. I thought it was really well done. And Tom Hanks, the best compliment I could play to Tom Hanks is I forgot Tom Hanks is in the movie halfway through it, because he completely goes into this character of Colonel Tom Parker that you don't see Tom Hanks. You don't see the Tom Hanks you know on the screen the whole movie. It's really well done. It's no Top Gun Maverick, but I would recommend going and seeing it on a big screen if you get a chance.
So we were watching. I'm trying to confirm this before I make myself look like a fool. We were watching the MTV Music Awards, which still exist. And
do they play music at them?
They did. And so let me go back to the Elvis question first, Chad. Is this the actual, are they using tracks from Elvis's catalog, or is this someone singing Elvis's music as Elvis? Does that make sense? Is someone voice tracking this?
No, this is, I have not.
So let me tie it in.
It's him lip syncing. I'm pretty sure it's Elvis recordings.
So,
they've amplified, but it's not his singing voice.
Okay.
Mimicking Elvis. His speaking voice as Elvis is perfect.
This music artist, and Gracie Fontaine may rip me for however I say his name. Is it Sway Lee? Okay, Sway Lee and Diplo. They did this performance of Tupelo Shuffle is the name of it, at the MTV Video Music Awards that Claire DVR'd for some reason. And it's on, and I'm watching this, and it was awful. It was just pure torture. But they gave credit to the actor playing Elvis for the vocals in the remix. So I'm thinking, this guy is actually going to perform all of this stuff in the film. And that was actually the best part of this whole remix that I heard that night. Now, I don't know if is Arthur the guy's name or who's playing him? I'm not sure, but maybe it's not the actual guy who's acting as Elvis, but it was someone that was Elvis on the soundtrack that he was lip syncing to.
So
that makes it more impressive if he's pulling that off too, if he's actually singing.
So Joaquin Phoenix actually sang as Johnny Cash and was really good. Reese Witherspoon also sang in that movie, was good, believable.
Buddy Holly story.
I just looked it up. Austin Butler spoke to a USA Today.
Gary Busey.
He clarified that
Austin, not Arthur. Austin.
Austin Butler. Yep. He sang some of the performances of early Elvis Presley because the original early 50s recordings were not high quality enough to use in this film.
So that's what it's.
The rest of them, he said, mostly Elvis, but my singing voice is blended in with the vocals to create a louder vocal for the movie. But I'm watching the. I don't want to give too much away, but there's the last time Elvis sang in Vegas that he was actually on film singing is a part of this. And when you hear it, you know right away, this is not Austin Butler singing. And parts of the TV special, there is no way. Like, I can watch Walk the Line with Joaquin Phoenix, and I'm thinking, this is a really good Johnny Cash impression. This is not Johnny Cash. Like, there are parts you can tell it's Joaquin Phoenix as Johnny Cash trying to sing with that deep
and that
baritone
that
voice.
Makes that film better.
Yeah.
Because of how he portrayed. Like, that's why I'm intrigued to learn which parts is him versus which parts he's lip syncing.
Well, there's a couple of concert performances. One in the film where he wasn't actually arrested, but I think in the movie for dramatic purposes he gets arrested for moving his hips too much in a provocative way, which he was known as Elvis the Pelvis. Early on, it was a big controversy because he was getting women too excited during his performances. But he's doing so much on stage and singing so perfectly, you know he's lip syncing because no human could do the things he was doing physically on stage at the time and not be out of breath or change their voice in some way as they're doing it.
Does this
the vocals are perfect as he's doing it.
Does this end with a bathroom drug overdose at Graceland?
I will give this part away. Thank God it does not. They do not demean Elvis and show him on a toilet.
Demean him by showing him
dead on a toilet.
Demeaning to show what happened?
Well, I mean, there was I listened to a podcast in the last year about someone had the autopsy footage or autopsy photo of dead Elvis that was trying to sell it. And it was like a big bidding war, to buy it. But there was someone who was like, I don't want to, it's disrespectful to show that. They don't get into where he was when he died. They do get into
where does it cut off then?
Just why it cuts off with his death. But it explains his death and that he dies at 42, and it does a good job of illustrating just why the guy had a heart attack at 42 years old.
See,
too much peanut butter.
I want to see this.
Too much
everything.
I want to see this because I really enjoyed Walk the Line, and there are parallels with how I will compare this film to that. And I don't go out and watch many movies, but this is one that I feel like. And you say it's really long. Did it feel long? This is one that I'm interested in watching because of the history aspect behind it.
It didn't feel long because I looked down at one point, I was like 42 minutes into the movie, and Angie even looked over and said, man, they've covered a lot of ground already. Like, you're through some hits, in the late 50s already where he's on the traveling Southern circuit and then with, kind of moving his way up. But I'm thinking they've gone through Sun Records and a big part of Memphis already, and they've done this, and I'm thinking, this is moving fast.
Just for context.
It does never feel like it drags in one time period.
Just for context, what's the last movie you thought was long?
Philomena?
I don't know that.
Because there are a lot of movies that are long that you come back and say don't feel long.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not watching Jurassic Park, honestly, because the reviews have been so bad that I've lost interest in seeing
You're not missing anything. You could walk in second half of that movie and be entertained and leave knowing you saw everything you needed
I'll
to.
give you the example. The Marvel movies that went over 2 hours, while I found them enjoyable, way too long.
And I'll back Chad up on the Top Gun.
I can fast forward through every action sequence in a Marvel movie.
It doesn't feel long.
No, I buy it on Top Gun.
I mean, if Elvis is entertaining, I'm all in. I don't care if it's 3 hours.
Well, there's a part where I looked at my watch just seeing, okay, how much longer. I like to kind of predict what portion of the movie are we in. And I was never thinking, man, I can't believe we're only this far in. Like I said, the only time was 45 minutes in. I'm thinking they've gone fast-paced and covered a lot of ground in the first 45 minutes. It doesn't feel like it's dragging at any point. I'll give you a biopic that felt really long to me, Ali. The Michael Mann Ali with Will Smith, because they get stuck in that, Vietnam draft dodging portion of it for so long that it drags on, and there's, songs playing while he's jogging and looking out into the distance, and that takes forever. The concert sequences and the musical sequences in this are so fun that I think if I compare that to the Marvel movie where the action sequences drag on way too long and everyone's going to be fine at the end of them, that you could fast forward through, that's why those movies feel long. This feels shorter because I want more of the concert sequences.
Remember
the musical element of it, I could have even had more of it because it was so good.
I remember at the time, my sister went like 3 times to watch Titanic when it was first released. But part of the recruitment to get you to go watch was how long of a film it was. Like that was part of the appeal.
Epic somehow.
Well, it was like it's only. I just looked up Titanic. It's only 12th all time in film length. The Irishman was longer. The Irishman is long. It took me 3 sittings to finish it. Like. That's one that you have to grind out.
Did the Irishman drop all at once, or did they do it in 2 parts?
No,
I can't remember. It was all at once?
Okay.
Yeah.
I downloaded it.
I remember watching it in like 4 or 5 different parts, too, but I couldn't remember if it was like half and half, where they had almost an intermission.
The Irishman is 10th, is top 10 all time for longest films in one release.
I think it may have lasted me longer than A Flight to California, and then I finished it going to bed that night in a hotel.
I really liked The Irishman.
That was good, but I could not sit down and watch it start to finish in one sitting. Like I stopped it and just said, this is a good pause. Like I'm halfway through.
It's a 2-shot.
Gone with the Wind, longest film of all time. By the way.
How long?
Gone with the Wind, 3 hours and 58 minutes. Once Upon a Time in America, 3 hours, 49 minutes. Lawrence of Arabia, 3:36. And Ben-Hur, 3:32. That's your top 4.
So this is a future summertime topic for us. It's interesting to me how if you pair a pop culture and just overall cultural legend like Elvis with a filmmaker, because when you start this project, Baz Luhrmann, an Australian guy, has not done a movie since 2013.
Why?
And he's been gesticulating on this idea and Elvis and all that for a long time. But why does Baz Luhrmann get to do it? We knew this was going to be the definitive Hollywood take on Elvis. They may do something 100 years from now, but this is the first. This will be the most definitive. So Baz Luhrmann gets to do it. He does a good job with the material. I'm not bashing the guy for what he did, but, the Johnny, and it wins Oscars, but Johnny Cash and his story in Walk the Line is done by Jimmy Mangold, who had not done a ton at that point. How was he trusted with that? James Mangold, by the way, writing, directing the next Indiana Jones movie with Harrison Ford also, which is going to be a big job for him and big assignment. But, Martin Scorsese gets the Jimmy Hoffa story with The Irishman and the true memoirs of a hitman, right? But Jimmy Hoffa's a big part of it. Okay, sign me up. Perfect sense. Yes, Martin Scorsese should get that and be assigned to direct that with Robert De Niro and Pacino and everyone in that film. But the other ones, I don't know. There's so many good filmmakers that could have done a great take on Elvis that I would still like to see what they could do with it. Paul, if they were going to make a movie about Elvis.
You were a part of 20 seconds of The Deer Hunter? How long were you on film?
On screen, as I remember at the time I saw myself on screen, I thought, 4 seconds probably.
All right. You were 4 seconds of the 18th longest running film of all time.
It was long. And most people, when they complain about the length, they complain about the 2 scenes that I was in.
The length that you're in.
Well, the wedding and the reception.
The wedding and reception.
Which I complain about you not being on screen long enough.
Yeah.
In the
18th
longest film of all time.
It sets up the home.
It's right in front of Wolf of Wall Street.
I remember watching The Deer Hunter and thinking I didn't really know what it was going into it at all. And obviously watching it years after it came out and thinking, man, this is a big buildup for a Russian roulette movie. I did not get that. That was a big twist to me watching. I'm like, I didn't know this was going to be a movie ultimately about Russian roulette. It was going to be a big part of it.
God,
But
that
it was.
freaked me out as a 8-year-old. I watched that as a 8-year-old. My brother didn't take me out.
I watched Fatal Attraction as an 8-year-old and got about 15 minutes in, and my parents sent me to my room. Said, okay, maybe this isn't for you. This goes back to my parents not apparently looking at a rating for a movie or knowing anything about
Rating
it going
system
into
was
it.
not for the
No
Wimpros.
coincidence. It coincides with the year that Chad became a man.
It's true. 8.
8.
Some people wait until they're 16. Some 13. Some 25. Me, 8.
If you
He
were
was a middle school kid that
bar
became a man.
mitzvahed, you would have been real early.
Also, Fatal Attraction is going to be a TV series.
What?
Remade as TV series.
That's ridiculous.
With Joshua Jackson in the Michael Douglas role, who Hutton knows as Pacey from Dawson's Creek.
This is absolutely ridiculous.
Who's very good in The Affair, but you like that show like I did.
Like,
Paul.
what network is putting this on?
I think it's Peacock.
It's absolutely ridiculous. Give me this.
No. Sorry, Paramount Plus. It's a
Absolutely
Paramount property.
ridiculous that there are so little. I've complained about this over and over, that you can't find any television that you're going to go back 30 years to a movie, recast it in some ridiculous fashion, and turn it into a television series when anybody of the age that would watch it knows how it ends and what happens. It's so stupid. Write something new.
Coming up, the effect of Manning in Texas. We'll tell you next on OutKick 360. From 6th and Peabody in Nashville, OutKick 360 rolls on across the OutKick network. Glad you're with us. The Manning effect on Texas. Man, when it rains, it pours. You've got Arch Manning who commits to Texas, and less than a week later, as of yesterday, Chad, they had 9 commitments that followed this.
They've had 9 it was like an 8-day span since Arch had committed that have followed suit. That is what happens most of the time when you get a top, the top quarterback in the country especially, but someone of that celebrity status in Arch Manning. But you get a top quarterback and players will follow, especially on offense, and we've seen that now with Texas. I didn't expect it to happen this quickly. I thought it would take a little bit more recruiting from Arch Manning to make it happen, but people are falling in line.
So they get the number 1 player in the class of 2023, and you've got Sarkisian, who has a slogan of all gas, no brakes, and this fits that perfectly with how things have fallen into line. And he's done a really nice job, he and his staff, of how they've mentioned this last week. They have started by building from the trenches outward. So last year's recruiting class was heavy offensive and defensive front, and now you're seeing more being poured on top of that, and it really starts with Arch Manning, who comes in a year from now.
And I forget the number, but remember one of the early NIL reports was, I think there's 2 big Texas Longhorn collectives. One of them was solely focused on offensive and defensive line.
That was it.
And they're giving them like $100,000 a year, some flat rate. $50,000 maybe to start in NIL, which was smart. And I think it's just offensive linemen, in fact, that they were paying $50,000 a year, which we talked about. Maybe the early struggles with NIL in a locker room was what happens when everyone who touches the football gets endorsement dollars. Talking about what NIL was created to be, making money off your own name, image, and likeness, and then the guys who have to do all the dirty work get upset that the receiver, the running back, the quarterback are making a ton of money and they get nothing. Then you're going to have group negotiating ploys with the offensive line wanting to go and get money as a group, so they get covered as well. And then immediately you had the report about Texas doing it. Arkansas, they have like the Hogs, where every offensive lineman they signed a deal together with some company in Arkansas. So some of this is starting to fall into place.
Consider this. So you have Saban, who stands up in front of, and it was a sales pitch to those that are boosters and donors to Alabama, saying, hey, A&M's buying all these players. We're not number 1 right now. We can't keep up with, and he's alluding to the money that's being donated versus the money he needs, right, for the program moving forward. If you're Sarkisian, if you're Texas, and you've got Manning on board, how do you not do the exact same thing moving forward, pointing to A&M, and especially knowing that you're going into the same conference yet again with A&M, who doesn't want to compete with you, which is the reason why A&M wanted them out to begin with. The Sarkisian, I said last week, it felt like it was officially official that Texas was joining the SEC when a Manning chose them over Georgia and Alabama. Now, that part of that's tongue-in-cheek because he's welcome to join any program across the country, no matter who's coaching there or what conference they're playing in. But I think you guys got my point there. And I will also say Sarkisian's officially on the clock when you land a recruit like this. To then, he's got the top 5, to then join the upper echelon of recruiting, which he's doing right now. He has had the week that you're supposed to have after adding an Arch Manning to your recruiting class. Yes. I
had a Notre Dame huge fan friend of mine, reach out when Arch decided to go to Texas. Says, I wonder why Notre Dame wasn't more involved in his recruitment. I wonder why he didn't consider Notre Dame. And I'm thinking, a Manning is not voluntarily going north of the Mason-Dixon line to play college football. Not going to a school that's not currently in the SEC was a big stretch, was a big shock when he went to Texas. But I don't see any member of the Manning family not playing Southern college football in some way.
The Freddie Freeman Atlanta LA saga. So we ended last week's show discussing the presser where he's crying and he's emotional about his return to Atlanta and what the team meant to him over the 14 years he spent there. We covered the the recruitment process of Freddie Freeman to L.A., but then also the odd free agency discussion point of Freddie Freeman, what he meant to Atlanta, what he meant to the franchise, but the reports out there of what he was turning down and what he expected to get. He wanted that 6th year on his contract. Well, the weekend plays out. Clayton Kershaw is asked about Freddie Freeman after the series concludes, and he comes out and says, look, I'm glad this happened for him. I'm glad he can put this to bed. And I'm paraphrasing. He says, I hope we're not second fiddle. Talking about moving forward. Like, we have a pretty good team here.
And then we were wondering, how do you feel if you're a Dodger after seeing that?
How do you not react the same way Clayton Kershaw did, saying, like, well, it's time for him. He's been performing well, and he has. But we're not second fiddle. We have a good organization. We play for a great city. We have a good home fan base. We shouldn't be second fiddle. And
he's on a 12-game hitting streak, by the way, longest in the majors currently right now.
Going into the series, he was hitting nearly 430 over the previous 7 games.
Also,
like he was hot
his
going
Atlanta
in.
replacement, Matt Olson, blasted 2 home runs last night in Philly in a win, and has been playing really well lately too.
But here, the latest saga is, Monday, he fires his agency that's representing him after he signs the contract in Los Angeles. And today, Chad, news is out about why he did so.
From an odd source, too.
Doug Gottlieb with the report. His agent, Close, never told, I want to get the full name, Casey Close, never told Freddie Freeman, this is directly from Doug Gottlieb, never told Freddie Freeman about the Braves' final offer. That is why Freeman fired him. He found out in Atlanta this weekend, I guess, in talking to the Braves brass for the first time. And Gottlieb goes on to say, this is Gottlieb now, it isn't that rare to have happen in Major League Baseball, but it happened. Close knew Freddie would have taken the Atlanta deal, and that's why he did not tell him.
It's just corrupt.
About the final offer.
Sounds corrupt to me. Isn't that rare? I mean, the agent works for the player. I don't understand how it's not that rare. I implore you, tell me everything.
I don't understand how an agent, I mean, I don't know how, if you are represented by Casey Close, which, by the way, Dansby Swanson, Atlanta Brave, is represented by Casey Close and said he has no designs on firing his agent. I don't know how you don't hear that and don't get immediately skeptical. Or call the guy and say, hey, here's this story. Don't ever do this to me. I want all the information. Even if you think that my heart's somewhere and I might do something that's not the most beneficial for you or for me.
I'll decide.
If you're projecting and saying, I'm not going to tell you that info because you're going to do something that's not best for you and I'm looking out for it. No, I need all the info going into anything. I don't know how he doesn't lose other clients based on this, quite frankly.
And I understand why Freeman would be pissed and have a second bout, but he didn't learn this until after, on his way out of town.
So he's saying he did
not know. It's not why he was crying at the beginning.
He didn't know. Well, he was crying at the beginning because he's returning to the place that he loved.
Maybe he found out right before the tears started, though.
But he's saying he didn't know about the offer until now.
Yeah.
Didn't we know about the offer through media reports? Didn't Chipper Jones tell him about what it would be like in Atlanta versus elsewhere, and the contracts and the money?
This sounds like an offer he would have taken. So there was an offer on the table he didn't know about.
But the reports, I mean, it was well known he wanted the 6th year, and Atlanta wasn't giving the 6th year. So where's the disconnect with the reports months ago versus this knowledge?
I think, the knowledge out there is that sometime around the All-Star break of a year ago, the Braves were saying, here's what we want to do. Here's the offer. This is the offer, take it or leave it type deal. And that's where, if the timelines that I'm on is correct, that's where Chipper Jones spoke with Freddie Freeman and said, look, if you really want to be here, take this offer.
Yeah.
Because Alex Anthopoulos is not going to play around, and this organization will not. They will move on. They will not be emotional about it. They want you. You want to be here. Take this offer. It's a good offer if you want to stay. He didn't. Braves moved on. They trade for Matt Olson eventually when, business is opened back up.
Right.
This report would lead me to believe there was something after that. That conversations continued. Maybe they happened right when business opened back up, and they said, all right, we'll do this. And whatever this was was not what Casey Close wanted.
And it was enough
Well,
to make
So
Freeman
he didn't
happy.
go back. He didn't go back to Freeman and tell him that.
There's no doubt that they overplayed their hand with whatever he was asking for versus what he received on the open market. He got the 6th year, but he's got a better deal in Atlanta. But Casey Close could have also, like, that. What he's saying is the final offer compared to the offer that he was told through his representation that he was signing in L.A. But was there any other bidding? Once you acquire Olsen, was there any other team other than L.A. that was going to bring him
in? The
in?
Red Sox were the one that was, reported that was in the game or interested, but I didn't see many other teams out there. It seemed like he had to go to L.A. and take that offer, and he didn't really negotiate against anyone else. Here's the other very awkward part of this, and we saw it over the weekend. He doesn't want to be a Dodger. His heart is in Atlanta. This confirms all of that. He has fired his agent and could possibly seek a lawsuit against him for misrepresenting him and not abiding by the legal contract between the two if he's not disclosing information.
Yeah.
I don't know that he will, but he could. And he doesn't want to be a Dodger. He wants to be a Brave. He would still be an Atlanta Brave as we speak had he had the knowledge of that final offer.
But
if this report is true,
he's got to. He could be pissed as hell about it. He's got to come to terms with it, though. He's got to play.
Again, he's on the 12-game hitting streak, so he's come to terms with his play. He's playing like Freddie Freeman this season, so I don't know that it's affecting that. But man, that's just a bitter pill to swallow if you're a fan of him.
Yeah.
If you're a Dodgers fan, it's awkward, but he continues to play well. But when he doesn't, what are people going to say? Go back to Atlanta? That's where your heart is? That's where you want to be? And then if you're a Braves fan that love Freddie Freeman, tough spot.
And he certainly, it's believable whenever you get rid of the entire agency that represents you. Like, it's very public with how the saga has played out over the last 5 days.
I want to see if this agent has anything to say publicly.
If you're the agency, you have to come back out.
Your reputation is
especially with all the players that he represents moving forward, right? If you're holding back from Freddie Freeman.
Well, I think you retweet the Doug Gottlieb report if it's a lie. And if you're the agency or Casey Close, say this is not true. The Braves offered, and I gave them every offer the Braves
Here's
had.
why I was
If it's
fired.
not true.
This is not true. Here's why I was fired.
I was fired because I'm a Dodgers fan and I wanted Freddie in L.A. But I gave them every offer the Braves made.
Coming up, people continue to be stupid at Yellowstone. We'll tell you exactly why. Plus, a big guest tomorrow you're going to want to tune in for on OutKick 360. Apparently there's a big issue with bison attacks at Yellowstone. OutKick 360 rolls on. There's been another attack. This one happened near Old Faithful.
I've been there.
So we in Oklahoma a couple months ago, we drove through a reserve, and the bison are literally 10 feet, 15 feet away from the car. We're not getting out of the car. We're not. No. They're to me, they're very similar to the way a cow would react if I were on a four-wheeler.
Exactly.
But I'm not getting out of the car.
No.
And there are signs up that say, "Do not get out of the car." But I'm not dumb enough to do that. Apparently, people are willing to go up to these bison.
These beasts.
They think they're Teddy Roosevelt.
They're Teddy Roosevelt starting the national park system.
Not 1904, ladies and gentlemen.
And you don't have a huge gun. You're not armed like Teddy Roosevelt was. When he approached the bison, he was armed. Teddy Roosevelt knew how to shoot a rifle.
I mean, just people are idiots. We say it all the time in all kind of contexts, but this is a super example. Like, what makes you think it's a good idea?
Well, we were when we were at Ober-Gatlinburg, which I had such a terrible experience at and talked about.
With the
in
wristbands.
Gatlinburg, there was a ride, an inner tube ride, shut down because there were 3 bears right next to it. But it was behind a net, and everyone was over there kind of watching it. And it did cross my mind. I've got my 7-year-old daughter walking over there to see it, and I'm thinking, how close to the net do we get? There are 3 bears right there where they've shut it down. But everybody that works the park is like, yeah, there's bears right over there. They're up in the tree. It's a mom and 2 cubs that are walking around. And I did walk over there to try to see it. Couldn't see anything by the time I got over there. But, you probably should be a little bit careful. Quick
story on our buddy locally here in Nashville, News Channel 5, Nick Barris. He posted this, a story. I don't know if it was Yellowstone, but it was a national park. Someone left their car unlocked. Doors shut, windows up. And there was a jar of peanut butter where they had been camping in the car. Somehow, this story doesn't end well, by the way. Somehow, the bear opened the door, got into the car, the door shut, and because of the heat, died in the car.
Oh.
But the bear was able to open the unlocked car
to get to the
and was able to get to the food and was just hanging out in the car, and heat exhaustion killed the animal. But I mean, that is crazy stuff. That was just it was a warning to keep your car locked, not for robbery, but for bears.
Can you imagine the smell
Poor guy.
of a rotting, overheated bear in your car? Like you get back to the car, and I mean, you're going to immediately see it. Yeah. It's not going to take long to see a rotting bear carcass.
The smell of a live bear would be pretty bad, too, in your car.
Yes.
Considering there's no way out.
It probably releases all of his bodily fluids upon death.
2 to go, yes.
Which also
I'm imagining
really
the bear,
great.
what if it's a young bear that's in the back seat and there's like a bunch of junk in the back seat of the car or in the back hatch, and someone gets in the car, it's like, man, did I put deodorant on this morning? Or does this car smell really, really bad? And they don't see the bear right away and they have to go. Does someone go in this car and see if it smells really bad in the car? Oh, there's a dead bear in your hatch. That's why.
Think about opening your car and seeing the bear. It was laying across the console of the front seat and the back seat.
I mean,
that's a story for a lifetime.
That would be pretty traumatic. Like I would always, for a while, I'd still see that dead bear on my console every time I opened my car if I saw that. I'm this way with snakes. You go in one spot where there's a snake coiled up.
And it's always there.
And every time I go in that spot ever again, in my mind, I'm looking for that snake or any other snake.
We are back at it tomorrow. Mike Pereira will join the show, and we will also discuss the top storyline, as I see it, for the college football season for any individual player. Stetson Bennett will be a big discussion on this show. We hope you'll join us across the OutKick Network.
Don't block the box, do lock the locks, and don't forget about Brittany Griner.